Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. Glad to have you with us, as is always the case. Fun one lined up. Gordy Chiesa is going to join us in studio. Sean Mooney to talk a little Running Utes basketball, a time of flux with Running Utes basketball right now. We got a tank race update for you. Matt Muehlbach also. Shout out to James Peterson, who's producing today. Got Matt Muehlbach to come on the show with us. That's going to be a fun one. A couple of things we're going to talk about. Rule changes potentially looming in the National Football League. Of course, Scouting Combine Week really gets underway in earnest today for players who've showed up and they've done their testing and mostly they've done their medical testing to this point. You're going to start hearing the headlines out of the interviews. You're going to start talking about people's bench press and their broad jump. And, of course, the ubiquitous 40-yard dash. We already know that a lot of the premier players in this draft, or who are expected to be premier players in this draft, are not going to participate in certain drills. But very much looking forward to the Underwear Olympics, as I affectionately call them, because it is the most interesting non-competitive, non-sporting sporting event on the calendar, at least for me.
You can have the combine, OC.
You don't like the combine?
I'm not a big fan of the combine.
Okay, well, what is your favorite non-sporting sporting event? Your favorite event that obviously is in the sports world, but is not actual in-game competition?
I think off-season or free agency, NBA free agency.
NBA free agency is your thing.
First couple days of NBA free agency.
Okay, fair.
Yeah,
I like that. That's not bad.
and I'm more of a basketball guy than a football guy, as you know. If I'd have grown up a football fan first, I'm sure I'd be all about the combine and more about the draft process than I am. But basketball, I probably NBA free agency.
Well, to be fair to you, there are a lot of people who are like all the way football guys.
Yeah,
who look at this combine and they're just like, I don't care. I don't want to talk about it. I don't think about it. If you have somebody who goes out there and runs a 4.2, everyone gets up in arms about that. Sometimes that translates to great success in the NFL, and sometimes it just sets a guy up for failure. Makes the expectations lofty. If you remember, the NFL Scouting Combine record is held by John Ross, the former Washington wide receiver, and he wore it. I think he wore the right cleats, so he got the $1 million bonus from Adidas and all that kind of thing. His career never really panned out the way that a lot of people thought it would. Xavier Worthy ran a 4.21, and he landed in exactly the right spot.
He had a nice rookie year.
He had a great rookie year, right? So that's one of the things that comes from the NFL Scouting Combine. The records, sometimes they stand for a long time, sometimes they don't. Sometimes I remember watching a few years back, and there was this UConn safety, Obi Melifonwu, who was putting up freakish numbers, like otherworldly numbers. And the size, the speed, the explosiveness was all there. And it elevated his draft status, but it didn't turn him into a great football player, right? And watching that and also realizing, well, there's probably a reason why he's at UConn. This is pre-transfer portal. But, like, you can have the best measurables and still not be a great football player. But the magic comes when there is a great football player who also has the unbelievable otherworldly measurables. And even if you only get one of those guys every other year or every third year, I think it's fun. I think it's fascinating. And I enjoy the predictive nature, right and wrong, of the NFL Scouting Combine.
There's a ton of people, and you sound like you're one of them, that just like the freak show of the combine too. Like you hear the numbers of these measurables, the vertical jump, the 40s, the how much they can bench, whatever it is, and you go, I just can't believe that a human being can do that. I can't believe a human being's that big. I can't believe whatever. Which I can see the appeal of that. I just haven't quite gotten into it as much as other people.
That's okay. So the algorithms that I follow or that social media platforms decide I should follow are very interesting. Like, it tells you a lot about yourself when you zoom out.
Yeah.
And you're like, why is it feeding me this?
Yeah.
What is wrong with me? Or what is right with me, right? So right now, the algorithm is feeding me a lot of dog content because we're gearing up to get another dog. So I'm getting a lot of dog stuff on my Instagram and my Facebook and my Twitter for you suggestions. I get a lot of travel stuff because, of course, I love to travel. Food goes without saying. I'm a glutton, and I want every Franken food in the world. I get a lot of that stuff. Thankfully, we're out of election time, so I'm getting far less of the political leaning stuff. What I'm getting right now is a lot of strongman stuff, and I have no idea why, because I'm not spending a particularly large amount of time at the gym or searching for workouts from the gym or whatever else, but I get fed a lot of like world's strongest man athletes and their social media stuff. And there's a guy named Brian Shaw who is one of the most fascinating individuals.
Former Laker Brian Shaw?
No.
Oh, different Brian Shaw.
Different Brian Shaw.
I'm like, dang, he got swole.
Brian Shaw is a former world's strongest man, world champion. Like, he is one of the largest human beings you've ever seen. He's like 6'7", and at his peak when he was competing at the elite level of these strength events, James, he was like 470 pounds. And not obese, just an enormous, enormous man. Double the size.
That's like almost sumo wrestler size.
Yes, but
like the low end of a sumo wrestler.
But like more impressively built than any sumo wrestler in the world, right? And he was
muscular.
I mean, at one point he literally was the strongest man in the world. He could pick up more weight than any other human being in the world, right? So his whole social media presence is him doing impressive stuff with how strong he is, right? And I watched, again, the algorithm, thank you for feeding this to me. I watched him do the NFL Combine bench test. And this is a dude who weighs, while he's taking this test, probably weighs 425 pounds. He is not at his peak, but he's huge, right? And he does the 225 bench test. And at first, it's just dink, 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 dink.
225
dink,
pounds.
Dink. Like, it's like it weighs nothing, right?
Like,
let me ask you this,
like
James.
me doing just the bar.
Yeah, exactly. Now, before I tell you the result here, do you know what the NFL Scouting Combine record is for 225 pound
for reps
on the bench?
Is it? Well, okay, let me ask you just to get a range here. Over 100.
No. No way.
No way. Okay, so I'm going to say 50?
So it's 49 reps.
49, okay.
And that was that's a long-standing record, by the way. Stephen Paella, who was an Oregon State defensive lineman, I think set that in like 2011 or something.
I was going to say it had to have been a lineman, defensive or offensive lineman, one of the bigger guys.
Yes, yeah. You could probably predict. It's a dude who was a big-bodied Polynesian dude. So, yeah, okay. I was right. I feel very smart. 49 reps.
That's rare for you, right? To feel really smart.
49 reps in 2011. All right?
Okay.
Harrison Phillips, who we watched a lot of in Pac-12 play against the University of Utah in 2018. He did 42. He's in the top 10. Vita Vea did 41 reps. Now, let me ask you this. Do you think Brian Shaw, this 400-pound monster whose entire adult life has been lifting up heavy things, does he beat the 49 reps in this video I watched, or does he come up short?
I would think he has to beat it, right? Especially if you're saying the first, like, however much time he's looking like he's just lifting like a regular guy just lifting the bar.
That was exactly my thought. When he started this video, I'm just like, he's going to get like 75 or 100 of these. He gets 41.
41?
So he's like top 10.
Would he just get tired out too quick or something?
Yeah, I think it's a muscular endurance thing as much as it is anything else, right? So you're talking about he comes up well short of the all-time NFL Scouting Combine record. And to be fair, he probably didn't, like, spend 3 months doing maxing out on 225 reps. But this is a dude who's bigger than an NFL lineman.
He's practicing too much on the Atlas stones, right? Like he can't be be doing the 225 rep test.
This is a long-winded and circuitous route of saying, like, that's how impressive the athletic displays are at the NFL Scouting Combine. You get guys who are football players doing things that individuals whose entire life is to just be strong or to just be explosive, just to jump high, that they can't do, right? Like the NBA is much more of a jumping league than the NFL is. There are NFL dudes who weigh 50 pounds more than your average NFL player who are turning in verticals on the level of some NBA players.
Yes.
Like,
that is a very impressive thing to see some of these wide receivers and DBs who are heavier than NBA players, but somewhat similar athletic build, jumping higher than some of these NBA players. Yeah.
So I put a question out on my Twitter poll at RealOC Sports, 877-353-0700 if you want to weigh in on the Dish Pros text line. Because I am obsessed with this NFL Scouting Combine, let's say you're a GM, James, or I'm a GM. What should be the most important measurement, drill, athletic test for your evaluation of a player? We know it's not anywhere near the full package. We know that you can't just be like, well, he's super fast. He runs a great 40, and so that's why I want to draft him in the first round as a wide receiver. Okay? That's what Al Davis used to do. And it wasn't necessarily the best method. But which test do you emphasize most if you're evaluating talent? Now, you've got your 40-yard dash. You've got your vertical jump. You've got your broad jump. You've got your 225 reps test. You've got the short shuttle, which we talked about with Jeff Schwartz earlier in the week, that was a huge predictor of offensive line success. And some guys are so ridiculously fast on this. The record is held by a guy we also saw in Pac-12 play, Brandon Cooks, the former Oregon State wide receiver, 3.81 in the short shuttle, which I know is hard to really put into context for people who've never run it. But what you do in the short shuttle is you stand in the middle, right? You stand at the cone in the middle, and then you have to start. You go to your right 5 yards, touch the line. You go back past that cone in the middle to touch a line on the other side, which is now you've gone 5 yards, 10 yards, and then you change directions again. You touch that line, you go 5 yards back to the cone in the middle, and they time you on that.
We got to get some cones in the studio. You can demonstrate on the YouTube.
So
stream.
Yes, so it's and people have seen it run, right?
You've seen it on the combine.
But it's 20 yards, right, with 2 changes of direction. And he does it in 3.81 seconds.
That sounds super fast.
I remember.
Like, based on now, you're saying 20 yards in less than 4 seconds? Yeah, that sounds.
I remember when I was going to walk-on tryouts at the University of Utah, just hoping that they would allow me to walk onto the team. And they had us do this, right? And I was just like, what's a good time? And the graduate assistant who was running the drill was just like, your short shuttle time should be faster than your 40. It's got to be faster than your 40. And I was like, oh, well, that'll be easy. I got a slow 40. He said, obviously they want to, but it's just like, you want it like up to a half second faster than your 40. And I was like, oh, geez. Shout out Diamond Unatoa. If anyone remembers Diamond Unatoa, who was a special teamer and wide receiver at the University of Utah, he was at that same tryout with me. And Diamond turned in like a 4.2 short shuttle, and they were just like, yep, you're on the team. So that drill mattered to the University of Utah coaching staff. Now, you're a GM. What drill matters to you? What are you predicting? And we'll say that you're looking to draft not a quarterback because that's a weirdly specific position. You're looking to draft one of the athletic positions. You need a DB, a running back, a linebacker. James, what drill do you think matters most?
I was going to say probably the short shuttle because it's stopping and starting, which you have to do a ton of over the course of a play in a football game. It's and of course throughout a football game, and it's changing directions quickly, which you going to have to do, test that agility. I would put way more stock into that than a 40 time or a vertical jump.
Okay, so there's nothing wrong with that answer, and I'm trying to set you up for failure like I always do here. The Athletic actually has the scientifically evaluated results, position by position, of what drill matters most in the NFL Scouting Combine. So I'm going to go position by position here real quick for you. What NFL Scouting Combine athletic test or measurement, because remember, they also take your height, your hand span, they take your wingspan, they take height, weight, all that stuff, okay? Which of those measurements predicts maximum future production for the most important position on an NFL field, quarterback?
I mean, with the way it's talked about, height would seem to be the one that scouts and GMs seem to think have the most, but you tell me.
Broad jump.
Broad jump. Of course. Yeah, that arm strength, you can definitely judge arm strength and accuracy with the broad jump.
So this is why
that's crazy.
This is why we're doing this, because it is a really inexact science, and it's sometimes counterintuitive and hard to know what you should care about.
Yeah.
And by the way, this is true when you're evaluating high school talent that you want to recruit for your college team, college talent that you want to put on the field, and of course, college talent that is trying to go pro. You've got to know, as a coach, as an evaluator, as a fan who's like super hardcore about this stuff, the way we always like to be, what should I care about? Because everyone is like, oh yeah, give me the guy with the fastest 40. Just let's talk about what position that matters most at, okay? So
offensive lineman.
QB broad jump surprisingly has the highest correlation with future production. This might be skewed by certain players like Justin Herbert and Jalen Hurts, but the conclusion that has been drawn from this by the folks that the Athletic spoke to is that, look, if you can jump, you can probably move around quickly in the pocket, and you could probably stay upright and get the pass off.
I mean, Joe Montana and Peyton Manning, they had incredible broad jumps.
That's what that
absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. You look at those guys and you're just like, okay, cool.
Tom Brady, terrible broad jump. That's why he was a sixth-round pick. But he improved that. By the time he was 5 years into the league and a 3-time Super Bowl champion, his broad jump was incredible.
That's why Tom Brady ended up playing and winning 7 championships, playing as long as he did, because he worked his broad jump diligently. The NFL Scouting Combine record for broad jump set by Byron Jones in 2015. Again, this is a standing broad jump, 12 feet, 3 inches.
Oh, my gosh.
The aforementioned Obi Melifonwu, who I was talking about earlier, 2017, 11 feet, 9 inches. I mean, some of these guys can straight up fly from a standing position.
That's like watching a superhero movie and watching guys jump from rooftop to rooftop and going, yeah, that's impossible. That, like, 12 feet?
12 feet. These guys can stand on a residential street and jump from curb to curb, basically. I mean, it's ridiculous.
You know what we need to do? We need to get Nate Orchard, Isaac Asiata, whoever's still pretty good with the broad jump, and just get them on a crosswalk and see how far they can broad jump.
How many broad jumps it takes for them to get across.
Rojo, we need to get some of these guys who are still local, Sly, and get them on video broad jumping.
You know what we need to do is we need to run an NFL Scouting Combine for all of the staff here at Broadway Media.
Across the network with the fan as well, yeah.
Well,
at Broadway Media, you're talking about the whole company.
X96. Let's go. Let's see how Radio from Hell can broad jump. You know what I mean?
Do the Dan Patrick thing where we measure everyone's hand size and we can make fun of. We can find out who the Marvin is that we get to make fun of forever about.
Put your hand in. You probably have a big hand.
I have fairly small hands.
Interesting, because you're a large man.
Yeah, my feet are not that big either. Hands and feet. I'm like the.
What size of shoe do you wear?
I'm a 11s.
At 6'3",
yeah.
Are you 6'3"?
Yeah. And
you wear a size 11?
Yeah.
That's weird.
I know. It's. I should have bigger feet. I should have bigger hands.
all of the size on James was like he grew inside out. He's got a giant heart and tiny fingers.
That's it.
Okay, weird.
Yeah,
I don't like that. It makes me
know that's
uncomfortable.
nice of you to say I have a giant heart too.
Okay, all right. Back to the.
Glad I made that impression on somebody.
Back to the athletic tests that matter most, that are the best predictors of future production at running back. What do you think measurement, drill, athletic tests, which one do you think mattered most for running backs?
What's the broad jump equivalent? What's the next most obscure thing from broad jump? That's what I'm trying to think of here. This is not an obscure thing, but I suppose the bench press that you're talking about, 225 test.
It is actually a combined stat here, so an unfair question. Being young and heavy. So if you're a 20-year-old running back who is 235 pounds or more, that predicts that you are going to have a long and fruitful NFL career.
So age and weight.
Age and weight. What a weird deal.
That is weird. And also, running backs are not very tall, so you're looking for – if you're looking for heavy, you're looking for, like, the heaviest-looking person you can see.
This article also notes that the 40-yard dash for running backs is drastically overvalued. Everyone wants the fastest running back. That's not what predicts future production in the NFL, which, of course, production is success in the NFL.
I would think with how important elite vision is for a running back, I would think like a standard eye test. Hey, are you 20/40? What's your vision here?
So guys with glasses just can't be drafted?
Nope.
Sorry.
Need better vision.
All right.
I wear contacts, coach. I don't care.
Doesn't matter. They'll fall out, and you'll be squinting looking for it.
How are you supposed to see that gap when your contact falls out? Huh?
What about wide receiver? Which one do you think predicts most success for wide receivers?
Oh, absolutely the 40 time. No, I don't. I'm going to guess that the 40 time is probably none of these, right?
The 40 time is overemphasized again at wide receiver, and they really – poor John Ross catching a stray here. For every Worthy, there's a John Ross. So that's the two fastest guys ever to run at the combine. Worthy has been good. John Ross, not so much. So this one is really fascinating and worth mentioning because Puka Nacua actually excelled here. So youth, by the way, age is a massive predictor of success for wide receivers. Being younger in the wide receiver spectrum is good for you. They do this drill called the gauntlet at the NFL Scouting Combine where they run down one of the yard lines, right? They pick the 30, the 40, the 50-yard line, whatever, and you run across the field horizontally, and there's quarterbacks, there's people throwing to you from both directions, right? You've seen this drill? So as you run from sideline to sideline, I think you end up catching 4 passes, maybe it's 5 passes. And the first one, you turn to the south end zone, and then you drop that ball as soon as you catch it. You turn, you get another pass thrown at you from the north end zone, right? Opposite. So you're changing, you're looking the opposite way. You're still running in a straight line, okay? The gauntlet, whoever runs the gauntlet fastest ends up having more production as a wide receiver. And Puka Nacua, this is where he excelled. Again, he did not have stellar numbers from like a 40-yard dash standpoint, jumped just okay, all that stuff. Puka Nacua had the fastest gauntlet time in his draft class. And it's because, the way that this is talked about, it's because you run full speed the whole time, even while you're predicting that the ball is coming your way. You don't slow down to catch the ball because you have such confidence in your hand-eye coordination. You do not have to adjust your body movements. You can run full speed and still catch a ball, even if it's thrown behind you, if it's thrown high, if it's thrown low. If you run the gauntlet fast, that predicts future production and success in the NFL Scouting Combine. Isn't that interesting?
Well, that's the most logical one, OC. Because you're talking about
that's an actual
catching
function,
things
yes,
on the run at different angles. Yeah.
An actual function of your position in football being tested, yes.
The second most logical one, the broad jump, obviously, with quarterback success, yes, that's the most logical. 12 feet is insane.
12 feet,
I'm never going to
get
over that. 12 feet, broad jump.
What about tight ends? Utah's produced a bunch of tight ends into the NFL. Brant Keithy is trying to get drafted at the tight end position.
He won't be doing these drills, but
he won't be doing these drills. Hopefully, he'll go to the Big 12 workouts, which are a month later, and maybe he'll be able to do something.
Hopefully, he's in the physical condition to be able to do that. Yeah.
Okay, so tight end, what's the best predictor?
Not the gauntlet.
According to the data.
Gauntlet is not.
It's not gauntlet.
Do tight ends do the gauntlet? I'm sure they do.
Yes, they do. Pass catchers, all pass catchers
do. Is that the short shuttle for them?
It's the 40-yard dash, of course.
Oh, it's the 40.
Because when you think of tight ends, you think of 40-yard dashes.
That is so wild.
You think of elite speed. Vernon Davis, by the way, holds the tight end record for the 40-yard dash.
That's about the least surprising thing I've heard. He was an athletic freak.
He was a monster. 4.38 seconds at 255 pounds.
Yeah, what the fastest is like 4.1 something, right? For anybody?
The fastest official one is 4.21.
4.21. Okay.
But that's someone who weighed 70 pounds less.
That's a tenth. That's like almost just under 2/10 slower, and this is a tight end doing that. That's insane.
The sliding scale, by the way, is so crazy to think of, because if you can run 4.2 at 185 pounds, that's obviously amazing. If you can run 4.3 or 4.4, if you can run 4.4 at 255 pounds, you are a mutant.
Yes.
So 40-yard dash for the tight ends is the most important predictor of future production in the NFL. What about offensive line, James? Now, remember, offensive linemen are these unicorn animals. Most of the time, they're the most intelligent. The Wonderlic test, by the way, is no longer used at the NFL Scouting Combine. That used to be a major headline producer, quarterbacks who would get like a 9 on the Wonderlic, and everyone would laugh about how dumb they are.
Yeah, remember C.J. Stroud apparently had a really low Wonderlic score. That must have been the last one they did, and he obviously is awesome.
By the way, taking a Wonderlic was one of the most humbling things of my life. After years and years of observing the NFL Scouting Combine and seeing all of these guys that you're just like, oh, this football player scored, I think the perfect score is, I can't remember if it's a 40 or 50, but just being like, oh, there's only one guy who's ever done that. And there's only 10 guys who've ever scored above 35 or whatever. And I always tested really well on standardized tests, so I just assumed in my mind that if I had ever been invited to the NFL Scouting Combine and taken the Wonderlic test, I would have been perfect or near perfect score.
You would have been a wonder at the Wonderlic.
And then when I was doing my MBA, one of the guys that was in my cohorts in the NBA, his company, that was one of their things that they did. They gave you the Wonderlic test. And so he had access to a Wonderlic, and he's just like, he sent me a link. He's like, go ahead, take the Wonderlic. My score was not excellent. I got a 29.
29, okay.
Anyway.
It's not a 9.
It's not about me. Offensive line. This is the last one we're going to do. Offensive tackle specifically. What do you think is the greatest predictor of future production and success? And for those guys, it's not giving up sacks and playing multiple years. That's how you measure offensive line production. Which athletic test or measurement mattered most for offensive tackle?
Okay.
Just like the 40
I misunderstood. So
just like the 40-yard dash is over-indexed for wide receivers and running backs.
The bench press.
The bench press for offensive linemen that you would think is the most important thing because they got to be big and strong. If you overperformed on a bench press as an offensive tackle, it meant that you're not going to do well in the NFL.
Wow.
Counterintuitively.
So what's the best?
40-yard dash.
Are you kidding me? You got to, if you're a sub 5.5, you're going to be incredible.
The most explosive runners at offensive tackle tend to play the most snaps per season in the NFL.
We got it. You know
what?
We need to, next time we have Jeff Schwartz and Scott Mitchell on the show, we need to tell them these things, assuming they haven't read anything about it, and just see how surprised they are at some of these things too.
I love it. This is so the NFL Scouting Combine. These are the tests that actually matter. As you're tuning into the NFL Network and you're gradually hearing Rich Eisen get more and more bored by what's happening, just know that what you're watching, if it's the quarterback broad jump, that's who you're drafting first.
Most important position on the field, most important test for that position. You gotta be tuned into that broad jump.
I now desperately need to know whether Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders has a longer broad jump.
I do. Yeah, me too.
I want to know if Jackson Dart can out broad jump those guys. Or Will Howard, shockingly, can turn in like an 11.5.
And why you say shockingly, huh?
You know
National
why.
championship quarterback.
You know why.
Will Howard.
Sneaky athletic, all right?
OH.
He's stop it. All right, we got to take a break today and every day. The Sean O'Connell Show is brought to you by Les Schwab Tires. Tires, wheels, accessories for whatever it is you drive. Stop by your local Les Schwab. The pros there are going to get the job done right the very first time. Gordy Chiesa is here in studio with us. We'll ask him what his broad jump is next on the Sean O'Connell Show. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
JC now. They switch. Levine on Clarkson. Fires a strike inside. Count it. And one. Yeah. Walker will be at the line, but a beautiful pass. Guess who? JC.
Sean O'Connell Show continues, and we're lucky enough to welcome Gordy Chiesa in studio with us here at our Broadway studios on a beautiful Thursday, still morning, not quite afternoon. Gordy Chiesa, welcome. How are you, sir?
Remember last week when I was going to be here, we had that record snowstorm where I live, and so happy you mentioned before about the weather being so beautiful here downtown, and we are all grateful. And speaking of beautiful, last night, if you're a Sacramento Kings fan, it was beautiful, and unfortunately, if you're a Jazz zealot, it was not. And that it was interesting how the Kings really showing how they moved the ball and shot sensational at three different levels. From the field, 59.9 field goal percentage. From three-point range, 41.7, 15 for 36. And then from the foul line, 91.7. So they really had a tremendously efficient night, the Kings did. And you mentioned about the highlight about Walker Kessler. He had a once-in-a-lifetime game last night.
Yeah, Walker Kessler, 24 points, 15 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and he was 10 for 10 from the field.
Yeah, and add to that, no turnovers in 34 minutes. So last night, Walker Kessler joined Nikolai Jokic as the only player in NBA history to record 25-plus points, 10-plus rebounds, 5-plus assists, and no turnovers while shooting a perfect field goal percentage from the field. Sean mentioned 10 for 10. So he really outplayed a very tremendous player in Domantas Sabonis. And so Walker Kessler, he's the future for the Jazz. He did a great job as far as being lively on the boards, running the floor. Now, his 10 for 10 basically was all lob passes or stickbacks. So his development, he's got to now keep learning about taking a face-up jump shot, usually mid-range, 12 to 14 feet, and then sometimes opportunity taking a corner three, which will help his game as far as both inside and outside.
Okay, let's talk about that process, because right now, as an offensive weapon, if you even ever want to call him that, that's what he does. He cleans up around the basket. You lob it to him. He's 8 feet and in a lot of times, Walker Kessler around the basket. I know you want to add things like that face-up jump shot. Maybe he'll get a little shimmy shake, a little turnaround, a little Patrick Ewing, Akeem Olajuwon, whatever. Maybe that corner three becomes part of his offensive repertoire eventually. You're on the staff. You're working with this guy. What is the process actually like? Because you don't want him to get away from what makes him successful. You don't want him to start taking bad shots for the sake of trying to make shots. So give me like the actual coaching process, Gordy, if you don't mind, on how you add something like that to a guy's game.
You add to it as far as doing so many breakdown drills to give him confidence, and then show him in practice when there's a chance to when the ball comes. Most times you're describing there would be a broken play where you're cutting and the ball bounces to you on a funky bounce, and you have a turnaround jump shot from, say, 14 feet. So we always talk about as far as you're doing drills as far as mechanics of shooting, but in reality, you never shoot the same shot twice in a row from the same position because the defense is on you. So the process is it starts in practice all the time. You're very aware of an alertness of doing it. When he makes the shot in practice, you praise him. And then when as the evolution of the game comes along, that's the same shot you practice in the scrimmages and also in the drills that we did. So that's actually called unorganized shooting, where in a game stuff happens. And so you have to ad-lib. And that's when you become really a tremendous shot maker when you're able to shoot the ball. When you're not ready to shoot, the ball comes to you, but your mechanics kick in and also your thought process.
Did you ever coach a guy or multiple guys, I don't know how common it is, where they just couldn't get one thing, whatever it was, the face-up jumper maybe, the three-point shot? I know for a long time, big men were just kind of like, they didn't shoot from outside. Did you ever have a player that you worked on something like this, you tried to add it, and you're just like, you know what, this just isn't you. You're never going to have this don't take this shot.
Yes. Oh, that's easy. Greg Ostertag.
Okay.
But that's the second you said it. The other coach, I'm having an out-of-body experience right now. I'm getting the shakes, if you get my drift, Sean. All right. Also, a guy named Jaron Collins didn't have the lift, be able to do that. So you adjust. You try to add to someone's game. Don't be stubborn about it as a coach or even as a player. And then what you want to do, as always, any business, you want to play to your strengths consistently, because that's who you are. But then the evolution of your own game, subtle things that you're able to add to it. But don't add to it to be defined about it. I'll show the coach that I can dribble the ball much better. On a fast break, I can pass, no-look pass. Because what you want to do is be able to make upbeat, positive plays, but you've got to practice it to gain confidence. And by the way, the defense has to cooperate by allowing you to do that. The worst you do ever, Sean, like in football, is throw the ball into a tight window when there's coverage in there. And that's the same thing in basketball, where you try to thread the needle to a cutter in the lane where there's a lot of bodies there. Or take a shot, not against one defensive player, but against 2.5 guys. The guy that's guarding you, the help side shot blocker, and the third guy that's in there sort of trying to dig the ball out in the post. And that's when you've got to realize that I'm being guarded by too many people. It's time to kick it back out.
So I think it's safe to say at this point, Walker Kessler has established himself as part of the future for the Jazz. He's a great player. He's a great young talent. He's got some impressive skill sets that it's not necessarily about him scoring points. Great rebounder, great shot blocker, all those things. Gordy, he's 55% from the charity stripe on the season. You got to get better than that, right? So I guess the same as we're talking about with him maybe adding a spot-up jumper to his game. We saw Shaquille O'Neal never do this in his career, never get good at shooting free throws. How do you get Walker Kessler, maybe not good, maybe not great, but better?
First thing is that elevation of a zombie. With a lot of big guys, they shoot the ball too flat. It's in front of their almost like their head versus what? Inside of your ear. So if I was counseling him, I'd work on tremendously as far as getting the ball by your ear and shooting it. Karl Malone, 1,000 years ago, when he first came into the NBA, shot from the foul line 49%. He finished for his career 76.5. And so it can be done. Yes, it can. But you have to be diligent about it. You've got to break down your shot, the mechanics of it, to build it back up. And that's when there's a trust involved between the coaches and the people that are trying to help your shot. Because here's the worst scenario in Jazz basketball, is that when the Jazz someday, Lord willing, get to the playoffs, hopefully it's relatively soon, is that you don't want to go in the fourth quarter of a playoff game to go 0 for 2 from the foul line, because that's when it changes strategy. And so if I was counseling Walker Kessler, I would improve his mechanics, more lift in his foul shot, and also the last point about that, when's the last time when you watch Walker Kessler take a foul shot, he took the shot with his heels up in the ground and his toes what? On the floor. So when you take a shot, your heels should be up as far as delivery.
Okay.
And what your toes should be what? On the floor. Heels up, toes down. It's so elementary. But versus when you have your heels on the ground and you have your toes on the ground, the ball's what? Flat.
Sure. Your feet are flat, the ball is flat.
Absolutely. Again, I'm simplifying it. I'm talking in layman's terms. There's many more layers of this, so I don't want to get so technical where you start getting crazy driving an I-15 in a traffic jam right now. Hey, Gordy's tripping right now about his foul shooting. All right, no, I'm keeping it simple, and that's what happens. Is that so? Whenever next time you watch whether it's ward ball, whether it's CYO, whether it's high school, whether college, there's a foul shooter. Is his heels up and release point and his toes on the floor.
Are big men more prone to stay flat because they're big men and because their release point is already so high because they're 7-footers? Like, what is it about so many big men that make that free throw shot flat?
Well said. You said it perfectly. And add to that, their hands are really big. So
Sure.
The ball's small, your hands are big. Versus mid-sized guys and even smaller guys where the ball feels more comfortable on your hand, just generally speaking. So their hands are huge. So you know the expression, that guy has the ball like a grapefruit. You know, he has a grapefruit in his hand. And that was last night. Sabonis last night when on perimeter, he was making these passes like I call grapefruit passes, where he held the ball like a grapefruit, and he was on time, on target passes. That's the reason why. So with big guys, they don't shoot as well. Again, there's always an outlier. The exception would be the exception where you're conscious of it. Hey, I'm a big guy. I'm 7'1", 285-pound beast. By the way, I got fouled. I'm going to the foul line to get 2 points. Add to that, when big guys are good foul shooters, it's uplifting for the team mentally. Like you can't, like you want to give the guy a hug, your teammates down the floor. Hey, you want to give him a hug. So Sean, there's two people want to hug in a game. You want to hug the point guard, always passing the ball to you, and you want the big guy, hug the big guy for making foul shots. And by the way, please give me a screen. So the better teams have.
Love it. All right. We got to take a break here. We're not going to spend the whole hour with Gordy Chiesa talking about Walker Kessler, but he is, I think, a very important part of what the Jazz will be doing in the next 2, 3, hopefully 4 seasons of Jazz basketball. Gordy's going to hang out with us, like I said, for another 45 minutes or so. Before he came in, we were talking about the different drills and measurements and the things that predict success in the NFL scouting combine. Nobody knows how to predict success like Gordy Chiesa in the NBA. So he's going to give us some of the things that he looked for from an athletic perspective, a height, a weight, a wingspan perspective to predict success in the NBA. How do you scout guys based on their measurements? We'll get to that next on the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN Radio Network. Gordy Chiesa is hanging out with us on the Sean O'Connell Show for the whole hour. We've had him for 20-something minutes already. ESPN 792.1 FM, pleased to welcome Simple Plan with Bowling for Soup to the Plaza at America First Field August 13th. Tune in to The Drive with Spence Checketts for your chance to win a pair of tickets. All right, Gordy, indulge me if you don't mind, because I love this NFL scouting combine that's going on right now in Indianapolis. We've been talking about you now have statistical analysis of what the better predictors of success are, which is really funny because analytics have come in to pro sports in a way that they just weren't a huge thing, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And so the scouting combine for many, many years was based a lot on intuition, on the predisposed thoughts of GMs and coaches. And then analytics comes in and says, hey, guys, like I'm looking at the analytic article I was just looking at. The bench press at the NFL scouting combine, the bench press really is only a predictor of success for one position in football, yet they have everyone do it. So why? Right? Analytics have changed the whole calculus on this thing, but it's still a huge deal in the NFL. The NBA scouting combine has not been quite the television event, hasn't been quite the cultural conversation point that the NFL scouting combine has, but it's certainly important.
Oh, very much. Also, so add to that. Here's my Kevin Durant story about the bench press.
Okay.
So when they measured the bench press, he was in the bottom 2%.
Right.
And he was awful.
He couldn't even do it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Remember the story about it? Oh, by the way, he scored 30,000 points.
Yeah. Yes.
And Rick Barnes, who's his coach at Texas, said, I remember him quoting saying, "Trust me, don't worry about his bench press right now. This guy can play." He was correct.
Also, someone who is built like Kevin Durant.
Yeah, slender.
So tall, so long-limbed. The bench press, if you've ever been into a Gold's Gym or a Vasa or whatever they're called now, find like the tallest, skinniest dude. He probably has the worst bench in the gym. It's just mechanically, it doesn't even make sense for their bodies to be good at benching, especially when you're talking about these crazy outliers. I mean, the grip for somebody like Kevin Durant on a bench press, his arms are so long, you probably can't even get wide enough before you're hitting the actual weights. So I'm not here to talk about Kevin Durant's bench press, but what is the best predictor, Gordy? What is when you're out there at the scouting combine, these GMs, these coaches are looking at things like the vertical jump, all the drills that these guys run. What really excites people at the NBA scouting combine?
Well, the vertical jump is absolutely critical, and it's multiple times where you keep jumping and jumping and jumping like in a lane. So not one time. What's your best running vertical jump? We emphasize more when close quarters. How many times how high you jump quickly and a fast twitch motion as far as in traffic, which illustrates your ability to rebound in traffic. Next part about as far as the change direction burst. So we do certain drills where the player has to change direction and the offense or defense and be able to make quick burst to recover or to grab a basketball and take a shot. And the lesson we emphasize all the time is the across the court shuttle, where you're moving laterally across the court.
Okay.
As far as it's very rare in basketball you run in a straight line. In any sport, matter of fact, it's very rare. So the ability to change direction, to stop, go, but still recover. And so those are the three things that we really always take to talk about it. And so we don't get as much geeked about all these things.
Sure.
Oh, by the way, can you play? I know. Yeah. So I know a lot of guys that don't jump vertical, but guess what? They can rebound in traffic. I just described two guys I had the pleasure to coach, Karl Malone and Carlos Boozer and Mehmet Okur. Sometimes those guys couldn't jump over a Sunday New York Times. But they could rebound, especially the mailman, and so could Boozer. People don't realize what a rebounder Boozer was, especially in playoff games where he's even more edgy. And so it's any sport. Can you play the game? Can you play with the ball? Can you play? Can you execute under pressure? Do you have enough ball skills? Do you have enough mental skills? But these certain things, the verticality. Also in jazz basketball, it's folklore, where we did this forever. They still do it now, even with the new coaches, because it's part of it. We think we invented it, back in 1989, but people use it all the time. Can you make 6 running layups full court, Sean, with your offhand in under 30 seconds. So you're at the box of this thing. You go down the court layup, back down the court layup, down the court layup, down the court layup, down the court layup. 6 layups with your offhand in 30 seconds. That gives us a visual of your speed. If you can handle the ball with your offhand, meaning what? If you're righty, left hand, if you're lefty with your right hand, and can you concentrate, you're under the gun. So Stockton has the record of all time of doing it in 23.8 seconds.
Was he a good player?
The guy was pretty good.
Okay.
Now, and speaking of Stockton, again, I am not living in the past. I'm just making a declarative statement saying this. Probably, John, in some of these metrics here would come out only modest.
Sure.
But I'm positive he could play.
Yeah.
I'm positive.
He was pretty good at the actual basketball
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. So it's that fine line, Sean.
Yeah, last thing on the NBA scouting combine. In the NFL, now it's become a norm where, like, the elite players, the guys who are projected to be top 10 picks, they'll say, hey, I'm coming, I'll do the interviews, you can x-ray me or whatever. I'm not going to do these workouts. I'm not going to throw at the scouting combine. I'm not going to run. I'm not going to jump. Is that how it is at the NBA scouting combine?
It was until recently. And then the team said, wait a second, there's no way. So they might not play in the if you're a top player, say like Cooper Flagg, you might not play in the full court segment, but you're involved in all the shooting drills and all the drills that we just talked about. You're involved in it, though. If you don't do it, then you're penalized. Yeah, it just changed within the last 3 years because all the guys were sitting out. And
teams didn't like that.
Oh, not at all. We want to see the guys shoot. They saw him. In other words, they work them out on their own building. I get it, but you want to see when they're shooting with other guys, what their competition is. So you might, for example, if I was still doing this as director of pro personnel, I'd ask the NBA, can you have Cooper Flagg and Ace Bailey in the same shooting drill? He follows each other. I want to see if there's what is that vibe about a guy that might be picked either front of me or behind me, as far as doing that in the drills.
So you don't just want to see the drill in like kind of a neutral setting. You want to see what it's like when it's top versus top, best versus best.
Absolutely, sure. I want to see again. It's subtle. But if I'm like the and also if I'm like the 12th pick in the draft, allegedly, hey, Flagg shooting in a shooting drill, I want to go with him. Yeah, I want to because no way. Then suddenly it's what I can counter that by me making rainbow threes versus him clunking some, and that's all part of a game. Oh, this is about gamemanship.
Yeah, love it.
And I love also is that there's so many players that are underrated. I can go on a list, and we don't have enough time, about guys that are undrafted but play great. Or guys picked in late in the first round play unbelievable. And so I know that you have to have a high draft pick to be an elite talent. See the rest of using talent. But doesn't mean you're going to be an elite player. There's no formula that way. Oh, by the way, do you have heart?
All right, we got Gordy for another half hour or so. We'll start hour number 2, getting back to this Utah Jazz team, and we'll look around the NBA, some of the other big storylines that have developed, how Luka's settling in, how Jimmy Butler's settling in, all of these things. It's the Sean O'Connell Show with Gordy Chiesa on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Sean O'Connell Show here on ESPN 792.1 FM. Gordy Chiesa for another little while. Lots to talk about in the NBA basketball world. We'll get to some Jimmy Butler, some Luka, some of the big-time stars in their new environs in the NBA. But Gordy, there's a team on your mind right now. One of the fun stories in the NBA. They've been fun stories in the NBA several years. You're liking what you're seeing from the Detroit Pistons right now.
Yes, I am. Absolutely. Detroit Pistons, they have made the playoffs in 6 years. And the last 2 years, their record has been, are you sitting down? 31 and 133.
Okay, great.
The last 2 years. So just visualize that. So non-playoff team for 6 years, 31 and 133 was the last 2 years' record. They changed the coaches. J.B. Bickerstaff, who did a good job in Cleveland, they wanted to change. The new coach doing a good job at Cleveland also, so it worked out for both teams. And so the Pistons are the 6th seed right now. And it sounds very modest, but in their world, it's not. That they're ecstatic that they think they're going to make the playoffs, and hopefully in their world, they can get an upset. If it started today, Detroit would play Knickerbockers in the first round, 3 versus 6. So it's possible that could happen. They're led by Cade Cunningham, who's a tremendous all-around pass-happy point guard that can score the ball, but he'd rather pass it. And then also Malik Beasley, former Jazz man, off the bench is one of the best three-point shooters. He's added to them. They added Tobias Harris, Jalen Duran, who they drafted, has been a rebounder as far as that, and then Tim Hardaway. And they're winning. They're winning right now, even without Jaden Ivey, who's been a terrific player. Who's out with a broken fibula in his left leg. They get him back in the end of March right now. So they're the most fun story in the NBA that's under the radar screen. Oh, by the way, they won now 8 straight games in a row. So they're trending up. And they beat the Celtics last night by 20. Now, I know the Celtics probably didn't respect them totally, but they will right now. So they're really good.
Okay, so that was going to be a question. When you've got this team that's like an upstart team, still pretty young, hasn't had a lot of success recently, and they maybe are turning the corner like we're talking about with Detroit, how are they handled? How are they viewed by the rest of the teams in the league? Like a team on the Celtics level or the Cavs level or whoever, how does a team like that approach a team like Detroit? Do they take them seriously?
No, they don't, and that's the problem. So the answer is the coaches do, but the players didn't, because they keep thinking this is the Pistons of yesteryear, meaning the last 2 years. And so they've gotten better. Now there's an awakening right now when they play against Detroit-type teams, the upstart teams that are tired of losing, and they get the right combination of young stars with veterans that still have game, meaning Tobias Harris be a classic example, and also with the Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. And that's what makes them so an interesting story. I'm all for it. So Detroit right now, we know it's the Motor City, we know it's a Motown, Hitsville, USA, and they're right on point as far as doing that.
All right, let's talk about Jimmy Butler first. Jimmy Butler settling in with the Golden State Warriors. I think it was, who did I see? Joe Lacob the other day talking about, hey, we expect this to be a happy marriage that lasts for as long as Jimmy's ready to play. And there was not significant questions about that, but there always was a little conversation about, like, hey, if it didn't work out in Miami for him, how's it going to be when you integrate somebody with that kind of volatile personality and put him on the same team as like a Draymond Green? Everything working out all right?
Yes, it is. It's a perfect fit for what they need. He gives them an element of toughness to help the group. Andrew Wiggins, you love his talent, and he was an all-star. He's more of a finesse scorer. Butler is a more rugged guy that can pass the ball, can rebound, guard multiple positions, and he'll average 15 points a game without the ball. And that's what they need right now. It's a jump start in his career. Both teams needed a change. The Heat needed a change from Jimmy, and the Warriors needed a change from Wiggins. So it's worked out tremendously. And they use now Buddy Hield off the bench. So they start now Brandon Podziemski. So all part of it. So Butler has come as, I'll call him I'll call them almost like a 3-4 the way they play. So they've gone smaller in the lineup, but they rebound by committee. So it has worked out. And the Warriors right now are 31-27, the 8th seed. They're trying to climb into the 6th seed, which is the Clippers at 26 victories. When you're a fan right now, when you watch the standings, don't watch how many wins they have. Watch how many losses they have. And that's how you can catch up.
You just mentioned Podziemski. They love him.
Absolutely.
Are you as high on him as that organization is?
Oh, by the way, he can rebound. So I mentioned before about they rebound by committee. That's Podziemski. He's like a guy that's like 6'6", but he plays bigger. I'll call him a wing point guard, the way he plays. And that he could – okay, so his vertical. He'd be a classic example. Sure, I mentioned before about the combines where quick jumping in the lane. So he battles in there. He's always doing something. He's not afraid to get hit in the lane. So a lot of times, people are afraid to get an elbow in their face. Podziemski-type people are absolutely okay with that. And that's why he can rebound. He can score. He gives Steph Curry a mental health break with the ball. Also, so does Moses Moody. So the way the team is structured, that it's really balanced. And they add to that, Gary Payton II, a defensive player. So Podziemski is a guy that they drafted from Santa Clara. Who would have thought that Santa Clara U would have Jalen Williams of the Thunder, an all-star, and produce also Brandon Podziemski in basically back-to-back years. Impressive, Santa Clara.
So the Warriors, as you mentioned, are trying to play themselves out of the play-in tournament and into the playoffs and all that. Can they make noise there? I mean, this team, this roster, they're not big. They're not young necessarily, not the best players on the team at least. Can they make something happen in the NBA playoffs?
Yes, that if they get to the playoffs and they're 7 or 8, they're going to go against the Thunder and the Grizzlies or the Nuggets. And so the Thunder, tough one. So they're trying to their world get to 7. All right? So I wouldn't bet totally against the Grizzlies or the Nuggets outmatching the Warriors in a 7-game series. Let's not get. The question would be speed with the Grizzlies and Nuggets with Jokic versus the Steph Curry as far as the savviness of the Warriors. It'd be intriguing.
Who do you play at the 5 in a playoff series if you're the Warriors?
Draymond.
Okay.
Yeah, Draymond, yeah. Even though you love Kevon Looney because he's a willing screener, you love him, but you gotta play Draymond, so you're gonna go small. Again, in playoffs basketball, usually speaking, you play your 5 best players regardless of size. I mentioned before about Podziemski. They get a bonus where he plays bigger than 6'6", and so does Jimmy Butler. They can rebound in traffic against bigger guys because they have technique, and they both play with an edgy state of mind. Don't you love it, Sean, playing with an edgy state of mind?
I do, actually. That's the only thing I ever had in my athletic abilities or lack thereof. You just have to have something that you can't realize how bad you are, Gordy. When you're bad, when you're unathletic, you just can't think that way. You just got to be like, you got to think bigger than you are. Like when you're dealing with little kids. My 3-year-old tells me all the time she's stronger than me. She actually believes it. I nurture that mindset because that's the only way I was ever successful. And when you're talking about guys that are elite, like the top basketball players in the world, I can't imagine walking – if you're somebody like Podziemski, if you're talking about Draymond Green, you're walking out there and you got to find a way to shut down LeBron James, who's not even a human. He's like a mutant alien. He's not built from the same stuff that the average person is. Or you got to walk out there and Victor Wembanyama's there. I love that edge in NBA basketball players. And I think, they either try to hide it because it's not cool to have it anymore or whatever, or because you want to be so friendly with your competition now. I love when it comes out. I love seeing it in guys on an NBA floor.
So add to that. So that's why Jonathan Kuminga, who's a major young talent, he has the mentality where he can score the ball, but he's friendly with the competition.
Okay.
So he'd be a classic example of that. So his maturity factor hopefully hopefully with the Warriors, because they need him to score the ball off the bench. We left out purposely Kyle Anderson, who gives them a cerebral-type bench guy. So the way they're structured, they have these edgy guys that start, and their bench guys come in the game, besides Gary Payton, who's also with an edge. They're more finesse, talented-wise. So they have a good bench, and Kevon Looney gives them a rebounder in the second unit. So I do like their team. Yes, they are aging. So the question is, can the wiry veterans have one more last charge?
All right, now you got me off on a little tangent in my head here about.
I love it. I love your head
about the edge, right? That edgy sort of play. You watch any NBA podcast right now. I saw Kevin Garnett and J.R. Ryder were talking the other day about how Ryder used to have really good games against Michael Jordan. And then somebody said something to Michael Jordan about it. About how, oh, yeah, this young fellow is getting you. Or I'm not scared of you because, I'm J.R. Ryder or whatever. And that Michael Jordan kind of realized that and was like, oh, okay, now I'm going to prove my point. I'm going to take that away from you. I saw something this morning. Shaquille O'Neal talking about how going against Patrick Ewing for the first time or two was intimidated. And then Patrick Ewing, instead of being nice to him, instead of being respectful to him, was like, get out of my face, rookie, shut up, rookie. And then Shaquille O'Neal, for the rest of his career, wanted to make Patrick Ewing pay for that. And we get those stories now because all these older guys are doing these podcasts and they're telling us the behind-the-scenes stuff that wasn't part of social media during their careers. And everybody just gobbles it up. We're all just like, oh, my gosh, that killer instinct, that edge, that Mamba mentality that Kobe had. We almost worship it as NBA basketball fans, and yet it feels like it is so rare in today's NBA that a guy is willing to be unpopular with his peers. He's willing to be a jerk to people. He's willing to, I don't know the right way to even characterize it or to put words to it. It feels like it's going extinct in the NBA, that like true hardcore, I want to beat you at all costs. I want to prove that I'm the alpha out here at all costs. I know they're competitive. I'm not saying they're not. But there's a difference between being competitive and having killer instinct and wanting to destroy someone's confidence and their hopes and their ability to beat you. How many guys in the NBA still have that?
Well, I can name one guy. Tomorrow night will be Anthony Edwards.
Awesome.
Absolutely. So Edwards would be that guy you just described, Sean, as far as edgy, unbelievable talented, wants to try to attempt to destroy the competition. And so he is a outlier right now. The problem, again, is social media, the different platforms. The world is different. It is. So you've got to understand that. But when you play against, in this playoff series, there has to be absolutely hostility, because this guy is trying to take they're trying to take away your season, and you can't let them do that. So Anthony Edwards will be the guy who will come out in a playoffs. So the Jazz playing tomorrow night here at Salt Lake City. So if you're the Jazz players, get ready to play against them.
I was at the Utah Hockey Club game the other night, and they beat the Chicago Blackhawks. And the Blackhawks are not good, right? I mean, Utah's above the Blackhawks in the standings. And there was a scenario on the attack end, right, on when Utah got close to the goal, keeper saves it, and just hunkers down, you get the whistle or whatever. There was almost a fight because I can't remember if it was Lawson Krause who it was, but because the Utah Hockey Club skater just kind of drifted in too close to the crease after the play is dead, and his just momentum on his skates, he just kind of like slides in, and there was almost a fight. Everyone's shoving, and people are like, don't even come close to us right now. Don't come close to our keeper. Don't come near us right now. And I'm like, that level of competitiveness in a regular season game when Chicago's not going to make the playoffs. They're not going to. Utah obviously can. I'm just like, these guys are wired a little bit differently. And it's something that hopefully we see more of in every sport.
And when you do, those players are winners. That they might not shoot straight that night, or they might struggle at a certain part of their game, but their spirit and their physicality and their velocity, where that in most playoff games, including in the NFL, and especially in basketball, let's win ugly. Because most times you win ugly. In a regular season, it's more what? Finesse. I call it playing offense and defense in a tuxedo. But in the playoffs, it's the opposite.
I love that visual.
Yeah, really, in a tuxedo.
In a tuxedo is beautiful. In your formal evening wear.
Oh, very much. So think about it. Regular season, everybody's finesse, love fest. Let's shoot these rainbow threes, which I agree, shooting threes. That's not my point. But in the playoffs, there's nothing regular about the NBA playoffs. Sean, there's nothing regular about NFL game. Nothing. Zero. Schematically, it's different. The intensity, you could make certain plays, have to make plays out of nothing. Usually speaking, most games, and especially in the playoffs, you have to score out of chaos.
Gordy Chiesa is with us for 10 more minutes or so. We'll make it 8 because we do have Sean Mooney coming up to talk a little Utah hoops as well. All right. One of the headlines that has dominated the NBA recently has been Luka's relocation. Obviously, he had his potential revenge game. This was not returning to Dallas. This is on a Lakers floor, right? So I think a different dynamic there. But Luka ends up with a triple-double. His numbers are increasing gradually to get back towards his averages and things like that. I guess it's the same question I asked you with Jimmy Butler and the Warriors. Is the Luka to the Lakers thing, is it coming together the way you thought it would?
Yes, very much. And both LeBron and Luka have embraced each other as far as understanding about each guy's greatness and how they can lead their team. And so it's almost like they're both co-signing off each other in a good way, in that the team will be the benefit from it. They're playing as a unit. Luka, in a playoff game, could score 41 on the road to help LeBron to win by 1. And then add to that, Austin Reeves, who's had a solid season right now. That's their big three. Luka's really come to play. Conditioning will get better. His defense will get slightly better, but he is absolutely a born-again scorer, and he can make plays out of nothing, and that's what the Lakers need. LeBron can't carry the load by himself. He tried to over the last few years, him and Anthony Davis. They need more.
So we were talking about this a little bit yesterday because it feels to me like the trade itself is malpractice, in my opinion. Also, the way that it has been talked about afterward. It feels like, the Dallas CEO came out and said, I guess I underestimated how people were going to react to this. The GM seems to be doubling down on, hey, like this was the right decision for us. Now they're leaking stuff to reporters like, oh, he vapes or smokes hookah and drinks too much beer. And it just feels like you got to take your L if you're Dallas, and you got to realize that, like, people are going to think they're going to question you about this. Trying to undermine, it feels to me, Gordy, like they're trying to undermine Luka reputationally. They're trying to say, like, he's not as a professional as you think he is. There's a train wreck coming here. And that information comes from a franchise. Reporters don't just get it magically. It comes from a franchise. It comes from sources within a franchise. And even a couple weeks after this trade shocked all of us, it feels like Dallas is still on some level trying to undermine Luka's reputation, when I think you should just let it play out. I know that AD being injured makes them look even worse here, so now you're trying to save a little bit of face. But you never live in a vacuum in these pro leagues. How damaging can it be for Dallas if they don't handle the post-trade narrative better?
Extremely damaging. And that was done by ownership to ownership level. It wasn't done by just Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd is an intelligent person, Hall of Fame. He knows in his heart of hearts, you don't let a generational player leave your organization because he vapes and he does this, he drinks too much beer or cognac. That's irrelevant right now. That's irrelevant. But guess what? The guy's a walking triple-double, and he can play. That's all that matters. So they're trying to backtrack what happened right now. The ownership level didn't want to give him the $345 million, the Supermax extension, and the Lakers got a phone call. I call it Christmas was post-Christmas bonus right now. Only second to the time that my former employee, the Grizzlies, gave the Lakers the championship, when the ownership level told myself and Chris Wallace and management group at the Grizzlies, I'm tired of looking at Pau Gasol. I'm not going to give him the extension. Trade him. And that's when the Grizzlies traded Pau Gasol, the second best footwork player in the world at that time next to Tim Duncan, and that gave Kobe an unbelievable, incredible sidekick to win championships. It happens. It's Sean, it's the ownership level. It's not done by management.
Why are the Lakers the beneficiaries of it so often?
You're right. You got it. Why of all teams, why the Lakers? Also, by the way, Lakers do drama very well.
Sure.
It's all part of being in Hollywood.
Yeah.
So it's no big deal. It's people driving on Pacific Coast Highway getting in trouble. It sounds bad, but it's not as big as people think it is. It's perfectly, you'd rather not do it, but it's all part of being in Hollywood.
It's fascinating to me that, we're talking about this. We're thinking about this. I asked the question. Scott Mitchell came in yesterday. He obviously spent a long time in the NFL, and I was like, all right, where's the level? Like, what does somebody have to do where their talent can't override the behavioral stuff, the bad habits, the lack of professionalism, whatever? And he belly laughed about it. He's like, what are you talking about? There is no level beyond like severe criminality. There is no level of misbehavior that can override the level of talent that Luka has, at least not for a smart franchise. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is. Scott's very well said. Yes, it's accurate. Right. Minus criminality to the extreme of the extreme of the extreme.
Yeah, because every league looks the other way on a certain level of criminality. We've seen it a million times.
Oh, very much, yeah.
And that's not what we're talking about with Luka.
No, we're not. No, not at all.
I want to be clear. Like, Luka is not a guy with, like, chronic DUIs. Maybe he likes to drink beer, but as far as we know, he gets an Uber, right? He likes to sit down and smoke some hookah. I don't think it's meth, right? The guy is just – he's got some bad habits, and apparently that bothered Dallas too much. So that's – to me, it's wild. Gordy, before we cut you loose, what's your list today?
A list today, we had to get about Victor Wembanyama, who's hurt right now, rest of the season. And by the way, without Victor, the Spurs are 1-4 since he's not been going there. This list today, and Rudy Gobert is coming to Salt Lake City tomorrow with the T-Wolves. Rudy will not play, and I'm reading the reports that he's missed the last 5 games. The T-Wolves play the Lakers tonight in the late game in L.A., and so it's a Frenchman. So this list today is the all-time best retired or present French NBA players, the top 10 French players. There'll be many more as the years go on because France will have a powerhouse with their group as they go forward. Number 10, Jan Mahimi, retired in 2020, 12-year NBA veteran. Number 9, Villa from Gonzaga, Ronnie Turioff, retired in 2015, 10-year NBA veteran. Number 8, his nickname was Air France. This guy could fly to the basket. Mikel Pietrus, he retired in 2013, 11-year veteran. Number 7, he loved to drink a little bit of wine. Also, this guy, as a matter of fact, with his pinky out there, Boris Diaw. Boris Diaw.
There's a
former
visual
Jazz,
for you.
Absolutely. Sean, pinky ring out there, retired 2017, former Jazz player, 14-year veteran. Number 8, Evan Fournier, 12-year NBA veteran, sharpshooter. Number 5, Yoki Noah, retired in 2020 after 13 years, 2-time All-Star, Defensive Player of the Year in 2014, NBA veteran by 13 years, also NCAA championship with the Florida Gators. Number 4, he plays for the L.A. Clippers, 17th season in the NBA, solid player, Nick Batum. Number 3, Rudy Gobert, future Hall of Famer from the T-Wolves, 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, 2018, 2019, 2021, and 2024. The second greatest ever Frenchman NBA player is Victor Wembanyama at age 21. He is absolutely generational talent. He plays for the San Antonio Spurs. In case you're living under a rock right now, he'll be a future MVP of the NBA. He'll be a perennial first-team All-NBA. I think he's the second greatest ever Frenchman. And number 1, Tony Parker, Hall of Famer, 2023. He played 1,254 games. He played in 226 playoff game 4 NBA titles, NBA Finals MVP in 2007. So those are the top 10. Quickly, do you realize, Sean and James, that that Dominique Wilkins was born in Paris?
I did not
back
know
in
that.
1960, and Bob Cousy is from French descent. His parents were immigrants from France. And by the way, Sean, what is the capital of France?
The capital of France?
Yeah.
What is the capital of France? Is it Paris?
Correct. We're all about
I
making.
thought that was going to be a trick question.
Oh no, Sean. We're about trying to highlight your educational experiences.
You scared me there. I was like, it's probably going to be like Marseille. I'm going to say Paris, and I'm going to sound like an idiot.
All right, one more, Sean. One more quickly. All right, what is the most famous mountain range in France?
The French Alps.
Of course. We're about trying to help you showcase your ability of your Utah education. That's what we're all about.
I appreciate that, Gordy. Thank you for a great hour on the Sean O'Connell Show. Always love having you in here in person.
Thanks, Sean. Peace out.
That's Gordy Chiesa. More basketball with Sean Mooney, color analyst on your Utah radio broadcast. Next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
Gabe Madsen out front, straightaway 3-ball, bullseye.
Ooh, we heard
got
that
it.
one. Nice job, Gabe.
Lead cut back to 10, 40-30. Madsen now has 6.
The three-pointer 83-66 loss to the ranked Arizona Wildcats last night in Tucson. That sound courtesy of the Utah Sports Radio Network. Bill Riley and my next guest, Sean Mooney, on the call. Sean Mooney, kind enough to give us some time after that Utah loss last night. Sean, welcome back to the show. 2 Seans right now on ESPN
I love
700.
it. Let's good, Sean. Thanks for having me, Sean. I appreciate it.
Oh, love it, man. So, look, I could spend 10 minutes asking you about the loss to Arizona, and we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But obviously there are bigger fish to fry right now with this Utah men's basketball program.
Yeah.
Look,
Totally.
we love Craig. He was so gracious with us. I think he's an awesome basketball coach. I think he's an awesome person who clearly, if we saw the Tommy Lloyd thing, if you listen to the comments of Tommy Lloyd, the Arizona coach, after the game, Craig obviously has raised people the right way. I mean, so many good things to say about him. It's unfortunate that he is no longer going to be the head coach at the University of Utah, but that is the reality.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about this program right now and this crucial crossroads as they look for the next head coach?
Yeah, and I really like with Tommy Lloyd. Tommy Lloyd's a class act, isn't he? I mean, he did. He actually spent a little bit of time talking to Landon, who's our director of basketball operations, Craig's son. Landon's done a great job this year, and then he spent a little bit of time talking to Brady, who's a walk-on. And I agree with you, Sean. I mean, Craig's an easy guy to like. He's affable. He's enthusiastic. He's energetic. It's always tough, but this is the business. One of my best friends was on a staff that got fired, and, a lot of people don't talk about the rest of the staff. They didn't get fired. Craig did. But they typically don't have a job when the season ends, and that's tough. And the human side of it was pointed out by Tommy Lloyd, and I think he's really good at it. I was really proud of our men's basketball team last night, Sean. In that second half, I mean, Arizona's good. We know that. And they had been putting it on us. And we came back in that second half, and our effort and our energy was exceptional. And it would be so easy to fold. You're an athlete. A lot of your listeners are athletes. When the chips are down and kind of things haven't been going your way, you don't have a normal anything going on. I mean, my phone had like 100 texts the day that happened. I'm sure the athletes are going through all kinds of stuff. I think we responded really well, and I think Coach Eilert did a really nice job of making it simple, Sean. He just said to his athletes in the shoot-around, he said, I'm going to reward effort. That's so simple. It's not complicated, and I think you saw some kids come out with great effort last night.
So we know who the names are, right? We know who the candidates allegedly seem to be. What without, get specific if you want to, but you don't have to. Yeah. What kind of coach does this team need? Does this program need? Because it isn't a unique job, but it is different than a lot of places. You got to know the culture here. You got to know how to navigate things. The University of Utah is a great institution. It is a football school now. All these things factor in. So what kind of coach does Utah need?
Yeah, I think thanks for giving me that out as well. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, obviously I don't know the specifics, but I talk to a lot of alumni, and I know a lot of my friends and former alumni are really excited about the possibility of a former alumni coaching. There's no question. I think that would be a natural fit, a good fit, for so many reasons. Number one, because the community can connect. That's one of the things that I think we're missing right now in modern college basketball. Because kids are coming and going more quickly, it's harder to appreciate watching a young student athlete move up. So if they could connect to someone, that may give Utah a chance to reestablish itself in terms of the fan interest that we need and booster interest that we need. So those names make a lot of sense. Anybody that would have been connected to University of Utah. I do also think there are a lot of really fun coaches to look at out there. I read Steve Bartle's article, and the one that jumped out for me was Bucky Ball from Sanford. And the main reason that jumps out for me, this has no bearing on who we're going to hire. This is just my personal opinion. I know some of his players, and I'm friends with some of his players. Rylan Jones is a good friend. Chris Jones is a good friend. Emily Jones. And Rylan loves him, and I love that Bucky Ball. But then you have a guy coming in who is not necessarily part of the Utah community or not necessarily has been a part of it. That may be harder. But that's kind of, that's how I feel, Sean.
How much is the NIL situation, the financial world, of college athletics as we know it is developed into this this crazy thing. How much of that is part of the discussion on both sides for Mark Harlan and the athletic department, for the university itself, and of course for whoever ends up taking this job?
Yeah, I mean, we wish it wasn't such a big part of the discussion. I can only imagine that Taylor Randall, the president, Mark Harlan, Charmel Green, the board of trustees, everyone involved in this decision is absolutely discussing that. And we all know in March of this year, just this next month, we could have a wholesale change where there's an allowance up to $22 million to pay athletes. And then we hope that there isn't NIL on top of that. But at some point, hopefully there's a situation where we have kind of tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 athletes. So you're not necessarily paying someone, let's just make a number at $500,000, and they're the next Sean Mooney, who sits at the end of the bench and doesn't play much or doesn't get much playing time. We need to have a tier and then maybe have something connected to it, for example, getting your education, getting connected to the community, those sorts of things. But I think it's a big part, Sean. There's no question. And it's like it's hard to tie down what is going to happen. So you're always aiming maybe higher than you need to.
What is your level of optimism that things become more reasonable on that front? Because I don't think you put the genie back in the bottle. I think it's going to be revenue sharing plus NIL.
Yeah, well, and the problem is, what are you going to revenue share, right? So athletic departments traditionally, again, my opinion, athletic departments traditionally have been in the red. So I run my own business, and I'll tell you, it's hard to revenue share. At the end of the year, there's not a lot left over. So you're going to have to come up with money, and I don't think you can put the genie back in the bottle, but we got to figure out a way to manage this genie before the genie kills everybody.
Sean Mooney's our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking about the running Utes right now, a crucial crossroads for this program. And it's not just who the next head coach is going to be, it's what is the roster going to look like. When Craig Smith came in and he took this job, it was a full overhaul, a totally new look. I know there is some hope to retain some of the guys on this roster. It's not devoid of talent. So what does that picture look like for you? How does an interim coach kind of keep the wolves at bay? How does the new head coach, whoever comes in, talk to these guys who are probably strangers to him, quite frankly, and he did not recruit and say, but I love you and I want you more than BYU does or than Baylor does or whoever.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I think it's impossible, right? So, I mean, Josh Eilert, our interim coach, was an interim coach last year at West Virginia. And to his credit, the number one thing he said, and I got to talk to him yesterday in Tucson, he's just a great guy. He said, you know what, I'm in this for the student athletes, and he really means it. He's not just saying that. And the thing he said to his athletes, he said this last night on the air so I can repeat it, was I know you didn't come to this university for me, but I'm here for you. And what I need from you is this. And so he's doing his best to make this situation, a hard situation, good for the student athletes. That's all he can do. Let's not fool ourselves. I know back in the day, the NCAA had tampering rules and all these sorts of things. And I'm not saying that there's any direct connection from any coach, specifically not ours. But these kids are hearing voices all year round. So now I can only imagine Coach Smith gets fired. Can you imagine, Sean, what they're hearing from all sorts of people? They're lost my cousin Vinny. It's going to be really hard. And it's going to be about relationship. And I think it's going to be about creating trust. And typically you can do that quickly if you're a new coach. Players know pretty quickly whether or not that new coach is genuine and being interested in them. But it's an uphill climb with the current athletes. And I think we have I really like a lot of I like all of our athletes, but as far as keeping them, I really like some of them. I think we need to.
Well, this team does have to get a little bit more work done before probably we find out who the next head coach is and the direction the program heads. You got to finish out a season that is obviously not what you hoped it would be. Arizona State, West Virginia, both of those are going to be home games. And then you finish on the road against a BYU team that is red hot and is now ranked. These final 3 games, what are you expecting?
Yeah, I mean, listen. So I hate the fact that I love the fact we're playing Arizona State. They're 3-14. They were playing with just 6 scholarship players against BYU, and they did a pretty good job. I mean, they gave up a lot of threes, right? They have a freshman still playing, Sanone, who's really good. I think the highest recruit they've ever had. Their other freshman is hurt right now. I think Adam Miller got hurt in the first half, but came back and played well. They're down their point guard. So hopefully we can get that one. It's alumni night. Our kids are going to play with a lot of passion. They did that against University of Arizona at 3:11 a.m. in the morning. But I think the BYU game is going to be incredibly tough. Hopefully we can hang with them. And the West Virginia game, man, they got maybe the best player in the country. And we turned it over too much against them. We don't turn it over as much at home. So my hope, Sean, is that we win our last 2 home games and give the fans something to celebrate and not only have a good senior night, but have a good alumni night.
Fingers crossed for that and that everything works out for everybody. This is the ugly side of college sports. You don't like to see people get fired. You don't like to see athletes have their apple cart upset, but this is the world we live in now. Sean, always appreciate your insight. Great calls as usual, and enjoy the final 3 games of the regular season.
Thanks, Sean. Have a great day, brother. Talk to you soon.
Sean Mooney, Utah radio analyst, color analyst on radio broadcast that, of course, you can hear right here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. He and Bill Riley have pretty awesome chemistry. They haven't been working together all that long. They do a great job in a season where it's hard to do a great job, if we're being honest, right? They don't skirt around the issues. They'll talk about it and, of course, tell the stories of these players. I'm really, really curious, of course, first and foremost, to see who Utah settles on, who they can hire, and then what that coach does with the roster, because you got to get to it immediately. We'll have a Jazz tank race update coming next. And, look, we got somber news is the right way to say it. I don't know how sad people really are because it's a stranger, but it's someone that was part of your life as an actor on shows that you watched, a little Gene Hackman. We'll talk about that. Lots left to get to before we head into Hour 3 with Matt Muehlbach. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. That's right. An update on the effort to, as the sounder says, not be good for the Utah Jazz. Touched on it briefly with Gordy Chiesa, who joined us for an hour today. James Peterson has the official tank race update.
Yeah, Gordy knows a lot, but he does not have the official tank race update. So I'll take it from here, Gordy. We appreciate your time. A great hour with Gordy, by the way, earlier on the show. Jazz, of course, fall to the Kings. Great job. Plus,
well done.
A historic night from one of their young players, Walker Kessler.
This is the perfect recipe for satisfaction for Utah Jazz fans. You get a loss, so you don't compromise your draft position any further, and you watch a young player on this roster do some special things.
Yeah, 25 points, 14 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals. I put the assists on there because 5 assists for a big man who's not Jokic or Sabonis, who he was going up against, that's pretty good.
He's not the big passing, he's not the point center.
Yeah, that's a really good night. 10 for 10 from the field, 5 of 7 from the free throw line. He's shooting 54% from the line this year. That's the reason I put that in there. So, incredible night for him. And as Gordy mentioned, he added to it only 1 turnover, or was it no turnovers? Anyway, 0 or 1 turnovers are good. A historic night for him. He had a 20-20 game his rookie season. That's probably the only game he's had that's better than the one he had last night in his career. So good job, Walker Kessler. And yeah, that's everything you want. Not necessarily a competitive game. That would have been the only other thing that you'd want, especially if you're at the game last night. But a great night from a young player that you're planning to build around, and you lose. That's what we like in the tank race for the Utah Jazz this season. So good job, Jazz, last night. Tonight, what's going on in the tank race? Pelicans at the Suns. Kelly Olynyk and Bruce Brown are out for the Pels, 2 of their veteran rotation players that they got at the trade deadline. I believe both for rest, so they're doing their best to try to lose again tonight. Suns, though, they're 2-9 since the start of February.
Ooh,
OC.
Okay.
So this is a pretty winnable game for the Pelicans with the way the Suns have been playing. We don't want the Suns to start winning tonight. So go ahead and lose again, Phoenix, and then you can start catching up to the T-Wolves and others in the play-in race. Hornets are taking on the Mavs in Dallas. No injuries for Charlotte. They're at full strength, so that's good news for us in the Jazz in the tank race. AD is still out another week for the Mavs, at least another week. He's going to be reevaluated about 7 days. Caleb Martin, one of the guys they got from the trade deadline, who has been in recent years awesome for the Heat in the playoffs, he's also out for Dallas. So winnable game for the Hornets. They got nobody sitting. Mavs got a couple of key players down. Kyrie's still playing. Clay's still playing. You expect the Mavs to win this game at home, but just a sliver of a winnable game for the Hornets if they want it. T-Wolves at the Lakers tonight. That one's on NBA TV, 8 o'clock. That's Luka versus Ant-Man. Now Ant-Man's questionable right now, so if he's able to go, that should be a fun one to watch. No injuries for the Lakers. Rudy and Julius Randle have been ruled out, as I said. Anthony Edwards questionable for Minnesota. For the secondary tank, OC, we're hoping for them to just sit down Anthony Edwards. Go ahead. We don't need this one. Go ahead, sit him down.
Just doesn't matter. Let him rest.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bring him back for when you play the Jazz tomorrow night. Yeah, that's the more important of the game.
He runs hot, so you need to get him rested for when he plays the Utah Jazz.
Exactly. So we're hoping that the game time decision, if you will, goes in the favor of him sitting tonight. For an entertainment standpoint, Luka versus Ant-Man, we want to see that matchup. But that's not what we're going for the secondary tank here. Jazz, of course, they have the Wolves' first-round pick here, so that's why we're concerned about that. Standings in the tank race: Wizards still at the top. Surprise, surprise, 10-48. Jazz now in sole possession of second place. OC, They're back. We're back.
Let's go, baby.
Let's go. 14-44, 4 games back of the Wizards. Hornets 14-43. They moved up a spot from 4 to 3, 4.5 games back. Pelicans 15-43 because they won the other night. I forgot to mention that they got an upset win the other night. So they're at 15 wins, 5 games back of the Wizards. But if you're paying attention there, spots 2 through 4 where the Jazz are separated by a single game. So it's tight. Jazz need to continue to pile up these losses. They don't play again until tomorrow night against Minnesota. Did you see on the Jazz broadcast, by the way, OC, this is the longest homestand in franchise history the Jazz are on.
In franchise history? I did not see that.
That's what Bowler said on the broadcast. We trust Bowler. It started pre-All-Star break.
Wow.
They have not been on the road since before the All-Star break. It might have even been pre-trade deadline. Like it's been a long time since the Jazz have not played at the Delta Center.
The league just forgot to invite the Jazz to come play at other arenas.
So that game's at home again. Rudy, you heard Gordy say probably not. Rudy's probably not playing, so we won't have that homecoming game for Rudy again necessarily. Where are the T-Wolves? They're still 7th in the West. They're now a half game behind the Clippers for 6th. 4.5 games now ahead of the 11th place Suns. So I mentioned we want the Suns to continue to lose tonight because they're playing the Pelicans, but we got to get them to start winning so that you can threaten the T-Wolves. T-Wolves can feel threatened for falling out of the play-in race because that's ultimately what you want if you're a Jazz fan. That would mean two guaranteed lottery picks. The secondary tank not looking likely though. 4.5 games up on the Suns, who are again 2-9 since the start of February.
Yeah, Suns not helping, Timberwolves not helping by being decent. So thanks a lot, guys.
There's your tank race update.
Love it. Sole possession of second worst record in the NBA right now. That's what we're clapping about.
Let's
That's
go.
What
Let's go.
You succeed by failing. That's the new thing in NBA basketball. All right. Hour number 3 coming. Matt Muehlbach, college basketball insider, former Arizona Wildcat, joins us next. We'll get his insight on what's going on in the college basketball world, the Big 12, and pick his brain a little bit about this Utah basketball coaching search. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
Brady and Landon Smith are Craig's kids. And one's the director of operations, the other's a walk-on. And both those kids showed up today, and which is pretty amazing. We all have families. We all have kids. And Craig, I talked to him today and didn't have one bad word to say. Straight class. For his boys to show up today with their teammates, it says something. What we go through, even when it's going good, it's hard. And us guys that decided to coach, there's a lot of really cool things that come with it. But there's a lot of tough stuff. There's a lot of tough days. And you know what? There's a lot of times your family gets neglected because what we're doing to try to prove our worth as a coach. And so I got a lot of respect for those two young men.
Arizona head coach Tommy Lloyd, that was his post-game presser last night. A shout-out to Craig Smith and his sons, who were part of the Utah basketball program. One is a walk-on player, one is the director of operations, who even after their dad got fired by the university, showed up, and Tommy Lloyd was giving them the credit they deserve for that. That sound is courtesy of the University of Arizona. Big win for Arizona over the Utes. Matt Muehlbach, former Arizona Wildcat, Fox college basketball analyst, kind enough to join us now to talk all things college hoop. Matt, welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. How are you?
I am fantastic. Thanks for having me on the show. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you being willing. Look, Tommy Lloyd, we knew this already. Class act of a guy shouting out, and explaining the tough situation that the Smith family is in right now. Love that from his post-game presser.
I did too, for many reasons. First of all, I know Tommy really well, and I know Craig really well. And I think like Tommy mentioned there, they came in the same time to the Pac-12, went through, their time together, in the Pac-12. Obviously, conference realignment stuff, which was not easy. But Tommy, the other day, Tommy lost to BYU on a last-second shot. Or actually it was last second free throws, and it wasn't a good call. There was a little contact, but it was a great game. And Tommy in his presser, he acknowledged that it was a bad call. And said it was a bad call, but I loved what he did. He didn't focus on it. He said, we didn't play good defense, and we, and credit BYU. It was a great college basketball game, and then he backs that up last night with really leaning into Craig and understanding the human element of it, and super class. It's really cool by Tommy. I got to say this too. I really enjoyed my time working with Craig. I did a lot of Utah games the last, whatever it's been, 3.5 years. I haven't done any this year, but in the Pac-12 era, did those 3 years, and spent a lot of time with Craig and enjoyed my conversations with him. He was always, like Tommy, a really stand-up guy, and so he'll be missed. I'm sure he's going to land on his feet. He's a really good guy, and knows the game, and I think he'll continue to do well somewhere else.
Well, yeah, we feel the same way about Craig. He's been great to us. Bummer to see him go, but you got to turn the page, and Utah basketball has got to make the right hire moving forward. Got to get back to the NCAA tournament. We know that success breeds financial success, and finances breed actual competitive success. But you got to get the right coach. And I'll ask you, as someone who's not biased and wearing Ute-colored goggles, how appealing is this job right now on the college basketball landscape?
Well, I think it's appealing for many reasons. I'll give you my first is I've actually likened the Utah job to Arizona over the years, and not exactly the same, but I've likened it to it. I have a little personal history in it, partly because I visited 4 schools when I came out of high school. I visited Kansas, Arizona, Stanford, and Utah, and I actually felt like the Utah program was similar to Arizona. And Mark Harlan's a good friend of mine. He was at Arizona for a time, and I think he probably sees some of that. He's going to make a good decision. But I remember I came on a recruiting trip, went to a football game, and I thought, God, the football atmosphere is fantastic. It's a college town like Arizona. Now, Utah obviously has the Jazz, so they have a little bit more in terms of the pro part of it. But the other thing I loved about it was, colleges were about the same size, really, really unique, good college towns, but they also had great history for basketball. In fact, Utah's history was even better than Arizona's. Arizona had Fred Snowden in the 70s, and they really became a basketball town. And Utah, I've done my research doing those Utah games, looking back, and I think it was the 50s and 60s, and of course the Majerus years. And so there's a spirit and a thread and a like a feeling of basketball in the bones of the Utah fans, and you can feel it when you do their games. So I think because of that, they have a great historic arena. And nowadays, it's about getting the support from the alumni, getting NIL support, understanding there's conference realignment now, understanding that, and that's been settled at least for the moment. But understanding that there's got to be a lot of support because you've got to compete with that support with other schools. And so I think the history bodes really well. The conference is phenomenal, the Big 12 conference. I've enjoyed it as an Arizona fan, and watching, how great is it to play not only great teams, but great arenas. There almost isn't a night off where you have a great arena. The Huntsman Center is awesome. McHale's awesome. You go to Iowa State. KU is, maybe one of the top two in the history of college basketball. Texas Tech is great. Iowa State, I mentioned Iowa State is great. I mean, so it's just those kind of things. You can recruit kids to a great conference. You're going to get on TV a lot. You're gonna play great arenas, and you're going to play against pros, and it's going to be a great college experience. So I'm sorry for kind of winding on there so long, but I think it has a lot to offer.
No, the longer you go, the better for me, man. People don't want to hear me; they hear me enough, Matt. So more of you is what we're looking for right now. Look, this Big 12 basketball conference, it is a change of scenery, certainly not just for the Utes, but for Arizona, for everybody who kind of came over from the Pac-12. And you already told me that you like it for Arizona. I get from the fan perspective, big-time matchups and these great arenas and all that kind of stuff. Can Arizona have the same degree of success in the Big 12 as they had in the Pac-12?
I think so. I think it's going to be similar. Now, maybe they may not win it, every other year, be literally at the 1 or 2 spot like they were for so long. For so many years, Lute had them there. Then Sean Miller had them there. And then, Tommy Lloyd's had them there. But, but to me, if you finish first or fourth or fifth in the Big 12, it's pretty close. And I think more importantly than the success in the conference, I think it's going to breed success in the NCAA tournament. And the reason I say that is I think I just mentioned the arenas, the strength of schedule, the depth of the conference. It just feels like there's more depth and harder places to play. It's also a more physical league. I'll just be quite frank about it. It's more physical. Look, the Pac-12 has had, talent-wise, has been probably as good as almost anyone in the country for a long, long time. But it wasn't the most physical league. And the Big 12 is a little bit more of a rock fight. And if you assume that, or if you agree with that, the NCAA tournament is the ultimate rock fight to me. And I felt like, I've said this to some people, I felt like for the last 35, 40 years, Arizona, what they've done is trotted out as many pros almost as any school in college basketball. They might be 1, 2, or 3 up there with pros and successful pros, but it's almost like they've put out a Ferrari every year. And the NCAA tournament is not played on the Autobahn. It's played, off-road. And so it's good to have speed. It's good to have the Ferrari-like qualities, but you need kind of some strength and physicality. And I think they lost some of that through the conference years with the Pac-12, and the Big 12 is gonna prepare them and prepare Utah and prepare those teams for the NCAA tournament. And I think, you're not going to see it every year. Of course, you're going to have to look at it through the long term, but I think it's going to be a real plus.
Matt Muehlbach, my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking a little college hoop with the former Arizona Wildcat. So when we zoom that out beyond Arizona, and you already talked about how it can help Utah, we're seeing something in our home state, in my home state. BYU is having a basketball moment where you got the #1 recruit in the country come in, and You've got a projected lottery pick on the roster right now. You've got Danny Ainge and the Jazz owner, clearly very invested in the future of BYU basketball. And this is a Utah picture of the thing that's happening all over the country, where, you know, the finances are supporting success, and then hopefully the success, as I mentioned earlier, promotes more of the finances coming in for Utah to try and keep up with that. And look, even for Arizona and for Kansas and whoever else, if you're offering more than everyone else is offering to get the number one recruit in the country, you got to compete still on the floor, and that's what matters most. But this is also a battle that has to be won. How does it change things for the other teams in the Big 12 Conference if BYU's got a billionaire donor that wants to make their basketball program a thing?
Yeah, that's the support I was talking about earlier. And by the way, great job. I saw them play. I saw the game in McHale on Saturday. I actually watched part of it last night. The Richie Saunders kid, what a moment he's having. You mentioned the BYU moments. He's been phenomenal in his progression. But you know what's kind of interesting? I do think you're going to have to battle those things, right? You're going to have to battle the finances and the resources, and those that have them are going to have advantages. You're going to get players out of high school. But look at what BYU's doing it with. If I'm not mistaken, I think Richie Saunders is a 3-year player.
Yeah.
He came to BYU, has progressed every year. In fact, I think his numbers are like, 5.5 his first year, 10 his second, and 16 his third. Like, you're still going to have to do the same old kind of blocking and tackling of developing players, creating chemistry, creating culture. And, Arizona had a kid this year, Salmon, and I can't remember his first name. He was a McDonald's All-American. And I think what happened was he chose to go to ASU after Caleb Love came back. And as good as it is to get young kids, I mean, we've seen this in football. We're going to see kids that are going to get an enormous amount of money, and they're going to be busts. They're going to not, turn out great, and some will be good too. I mean, so the money will make a difference, no question about it. But I think you still have to. There's going to be this incredible kind of, like, it's the whole thing is a recipe, right? You got to get some really good ingredients, but you still got to put the recipe together. You've got to make it work. You've got to have culture. And so it's not as easy as just signing the top guys. And look, we saw that with Coach Cal at Kentucky, right? He was getting the number one recruits before NIL. And I'm not saying they were very successful. Don't get me wrong. And I enjoy watching their program. I give them a ton of credit, and Coach Cal was a total innovator. But they won one national title with years and years of just not. I mean, literally like 5 first-round NBA picks on the same team. And so it's not simple. It's not simple, and even with the great talent. So it's going to be you have to really put a lot of things together to make it work. And but the money's going to help. If you've got, and I think most programs are doing what you just talked about, is they're trying to find. It's almost like kind of finding an owner. The Jerry Jones of your program.
Matt, I don't think I'm going to be able to stomach if we have to talk about SEC basketball the way we talk about SEC football. So please tell me that this is an outlier year for the Southeastern Conference in basketball.
Well, I wish I could, but I think what you just said in terms of resources is coming to the forefront. I mean, my daughters play volleyball and play indoor and beach. And, so I've been really involved in just watching the game. And my oldest daughter originally committed to Oregon for beach volleyball. So I've been watching the teams and everything. And, back in the day, and I went to Arizona, it was the Pac-12 was the premier volleyball conference, and the Big Ten, of course. And I don't remember an SEC school ever being good in volleyball. And I'm sure they were. I just don't remember it. But now all of a sudden, look who's in the, Final Four, teams like Louisville and, although, but SEC teams, Kentucky, Florida, they have great teams now, and it's the resources. Same with softball. So resources are going to play a huge part. This is the best SEC conference I've ever seen in basketball. And I think the resources, not only the players, I think one thing that gets overlooked is I think head coaches. I mean, now the SEC, you look at their coaches; they have some fantastic coaches, and that's led to part of the success.
All right, as I'm sure you're already aware, the Utah Jazz are aggressively tanking to try and get a top draft pick in the upcoming NBA lottery. And, of course, most of those guys this year, even more than recent years, there's, I think, less of an international influence at the top of the draft this year. A lot of the top players, the top NBA draft prospects are, of course, college basketball players right now. Edgecombe's in the conference at Baylor, and you've got Harper and the Rutgers guys, and, of course, Cooper Flagg. I don't know how many of these guys you've seen in person, but wanted to get your thoughts on the top collegiate players who we think, in just a few months are going to be at the height of that lottery in the NBA.
Yeah, those top four are pretty amazing players. I saw Cooper Flagg play in person once this year. He's I don't know if I'd say generational, but he might be generational. He's phenomenal. And so, yeah, if you're in position to get him, it's going to change your franchise. I do think the kids from Rutgers, I think they're probably 2 and 3 right now. I haven't seen them play a lot. I know the one kid I've seen and heard from my buddies that are saying he's the best player in the Big 12 or the Big 10 by far. I love the kid Edgecombe. When he played the other night, I saw him play. He looked to me like a little bit of a young, kind of more raw Anthony Edwards. So you're talking about a guy that's probably going to go fourth, and Edwards went first. So I think anywhere in that top four, these are some game changer players. Cooper Flagg is the game changer in my mind. When I saw him play, the combination of his size, his athleticism. By the way, I forgot I've seen him play twice. I forgot my buddy Steve Kerr, who I played with, was coaching the Dream Team, the Olympic team this year. I happened to be in Vegas at a volleyball tournament for my daughter, and they happened to have their practice where they played the little scrimmage, and Flagg was at the scrimmage. And I remember looking at him like I knew who he was, but what he did and it's a kind of a pickup scrimmage. It's not a full game, of course, but his confidence to play against the Dream Team basically was blew me away. Absolutely blew me away. He looked totally comfortable. He fit in. He looked like he was on the team. So it's going to be interesting to see who gets them. And I've watched the Jazz for a long time, and Lauri Markkanen, Arizona player with the Jazz, doing well, and would be really fascinating if they were able to get him.
Tell you what, Lowry is beloved for good reason around here. He fits in not only to the basketball that the Jazz are playing, but fits in this community incredibly well. Family man,
The finisher.
Yeah, he's awesome.
The finisher. Yep.
Before I let you go,
awesome.
you can't say Arizona because you're an Arizona guy. What Big 12 team makes the deepest tournament run?
Houston. I mean, I played against Kelvin Sampson. He's a great dude. He gets his team to play as hard or harder almost than any team I've ever seen. It's just when I watch them play and they defend and how they defend, and I'll tell you what, the difference this year, they're shooting the ball well. You look at their three-point percentage. In the past, it's been one of the lower in college basketball, and all of a sudden now they're really shooting it well, and that's changed to me their offense. They haven't been dynamic enough offensively, and like last year they struggled against Duke offensively, and I think their offense has made a jump, has made a leap. And so I got Houston in the Final Four. I love how Kelvin plays. They are relentless on defense, absolutely relentless. And I think they've got the right crew to do it. Very old, very experienced. And as I said, I love Kelvin, and I think they're really I think they're going to make a big, deep run.
Matt, appreciate you giving us some time today. Thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of this regular season, and hopefully we get you on again around tournament time.
That'd be great. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Matt Muehlbach, college basketball insider and analyst over at Fox. And how cool is that? If you're a guy in this, and by the way, he was Steve Kerr's teammate. I mean, we're talking about this is, 35 years ago now? And you still, because this is what happens when you're real friends with people and the network you can develop as a student athlete. He gets a phone call, hey, you want to come watch the best players in the world scrimmage and play some pickup hoop, basically. And we're also going to have Cooper Flag there. That's why he was able to see Cooper not once but twice. I want an invite to those types of things.
Yeah, can I be Steve Kerr's friend? That's incredible. Will Hardy, by the way, was on, not for the Olympics, but was on Steve Kerr's coaching staff for the previous World Cup, I believe, or maybe it was the one before that. So he's been around some of these guys. Yeah. So we need to we don't need to be Steve Kerr's friend. Maybe we just get real close with Will Hardy.
We need to be Will Hardy's friend to get invites like
Yeah.
that. I know it changes the dynamic, and so you can't actually do it, but selling tickets to that so that you can see what it looks like when Cooper Flag goes out there with not just pros, but the best of the best pros and sees what he does, right? And we heard this, like there's all these apocryphal stories about what the scrimmages were like with the Dream Team and what they were like when Kobe started to get mad that people weren't trying hard enough and playing enough defense and all that kind of stuff. That's what makes some of that is what makes people legends in basketball. What separates them from just being like a good player, an all-star, a great player. And he gets to watch it. Matt Muehlbach gets to watch it every now and again. That's pretty cool. Big thanks to him for joining us on
bucket
the show.
list thing. Bucket list friendship, I guess, is what we're goals, friendship goals.
James on James's bucket list is becoming friends with Steve Kerr to get invites to Olympic scrimmages.
Well,
I like it.
And Cooper, by all accounts, was awesome. As Matt said, he was awesome against some of the best players in the world. So, yeah, and they weren't. They also said that they weren't completely playing. The Team USA wasn't playing like they were against France in the gold medal game. Like they weren't playing that hard, but they were playing hard enough that's tough. That's a tough thing for a guy who's not even a freshman in college yet at that point. Not even 18 years old, I think. I think he was 17 at the time he was part of that scrimmage, and by all accounts, playing really well against the best in the world. Impressive.
Look, that's a good point to make. You're not going to get the very best of Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Steph Curry. You're not going to get the very, very best of those guys.
You're not getting all-star game version of those guys either, though.
You're not.
Like, you're getting
especially
good.
When you're a high school kid.
Good competitive versions.
When you're a high school kid or a college kid or just like the punk kid, they're not being like, yeah, you know what? Just let him have a little bit of run. Let him build some confidence against us. That's not how it works with pro athletes. I can tell you this, and I know the dynamic is different, but like there's never a scenario when the overconfident young guy walks into a room full of killers, and the room full of killers is universally just like, you know what? Let's let this kid have some fun today. On some level, somebody was trying to tell Cooper Flag, you don't belong here yet, kid.
Yeah.
And he had to, play his way through that and above that. And it sounds like he did, so that's cool.
Yeah. To your stories you were telling with Gordy, or you were referencing with Gordy earlier today, talking about Shaq he had a grudge against Patrick Ewing his whole career because he did what you said. He came out with like,
because he didn't
young
get the
kid,
one,
I'm not gonna welcome you to the league. I'm gonna dominate you.
Yeah.
Because you're not at my level yet, and I'm gonna show you're not. Like you had talked about, and you're right, it's not quite that way anymore, but in certain contexts, these guys will still do that to the young players. Yeah.
ESPN 792.1 FM, pleased to welcome Simple Plan and Bowling for Soup to the Plaza at America First Field August 16th. Tune into the drive with Spence Checketts for your chance to win a pair of tickets. I'm going to be giving away another pair of tickets today in about 20 minutes. We'll have some Pantera tickets to give away for you. Some news. I love the emails we get from Utah football, from the Big 12 Conference, whatever. Big 12 Pro Day. The date, the location has been set. We know some of the players that are going. We'll talk about that next. The Big 12 Conference's own little mini combine. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN Radio Network. All right, welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show. Show winding down. Some crosstalk with Spence Checketts coming. Pantera tickets to give away yet again. The NFL Scouting Combine is live in earnest. We've got 40-yard dash being run right now by defensive tackles. So hopefully we'll get a result for Junior Tafuna sooner than later. Right now, Tyrion Ingram Dawkins, defensive tackle from Georgia, putting a 4.86 40 on display here. 6'5", 276 pounds, running a 4.86. Not bad for the man from Georgia.
So wait, you didn't say what was best for defensive line, right? The best analytic measurement for best drill for defensive line. Are we to infer that because offensive line it was 40-yard dash, the defensive line is probably also 40-yard dash? What do you think?
I actually didn't see defensive line. Hang on, let me find this. Because they went all the way down to interior offensive tackles. Offensive tackles and then interior offensive linemen.
So they got that specific with the offensive line, but they may not have done
it. Okay, so this
defensive
article,
line. Interesting.
This article I'm seeing here, all right, this is the one that I have pulled up, which is from today. It's from a year ago today. Let's see, offensive tackle results, offensive tackle, interior offensive lineman, and then nothing. So I got to find the article that has linebacker, pass rush, defensive lineman, corners. This is mostly offensive positions here. So I got to find the defensive.
Okay, I just bring it up to see if Junior really needs to try hard in the 40. Does it matter that much, Junior?
That's a great that's a great question. Got an email today, as I teased before we went to the break, about what's coming for the Big 12 conference. They've scheduled the Big 12 Pro Day, which is effectively the conference's own little mini combine, for the Star in Frisco. So the Dallas Cowboys global headquarters, practice facility, etc.
Apparently the Big 12 football's global headquarters, too. That's where Media Day is going to be.
That's where Media Day is going to be this year.
There you go.
By the way, we didn't really touch on this on the show. Everyone else in the world did. So the Big 12 is going to do their Media Days in Dallas, or in Frisco at the Star. The Big 10 is going to do their Media Day in Vegas. You saw that
I did
week.
see that. Backwards, right?
Dumb. Stupid. I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
To accommodate the 4 schools that are close to Vegas in the Big 10. Awesome.
Yes. So that's how they're doing it. I don't like. Look, Vegas is a great city. It's probably more of a novel attendance for like folks from Rutgers and Indiana. I don't know how often they get like the West Coast schools, the Pac-12 footprint. Everyone in those states has been to Vegas at this point.
Yeah,
so.
It's the home of almost every college basketball conference tournament, especially on the West Coast, like you said. So, yeah, not a novel thing for people around here.
And in this email that they sent, they give shout-outs to Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders are expected to be there, Tetsuroa McMillan, Jonas Savaianea, the offensive lineman from Arizona, expected to be there. Jimmy Horn Jr. from Colorado, Jack Beck, Savion
Jimmy
Williams.
Horn Jr. and I don't care.
From TCU. Why do you do that to me? Running backs, a bunch of running backs going. Cam Scadaboo's going to be there. R.J. Harvey's going to be there. It's the who's who of the Big 12 Conference. Brant Keithy is supposed to be there.
And hopefully participating. Hopefully by then, we'll see. A month later, a month from now, he can actually do some of these drills.
Yeah, I mean, you cross your fingers that's what it looks like for Brant Keithy. The timeline, I don't know exactly what his recovery timeline looks like. And the tougher thing about it is you don't just want to be like, okay, well, this is my first week running.
Yeah, let's do these.
So let's go ahead.
These really important drills.
Let's go ahead and do these drills that are going to determine the course of my life, because you're going to decide whether or not I'm prepared to be an athlete at the NFL level or not.
That's that's like almost same level as like T.O. coming back to play the Super Bowl after like 6 months removed from this ankle surgery 20 years ago. Not obviously not as highest stakes, but it's that crazy. It's like, wait, you're gonna play? You just got off crutches. Now you're gonna play the Super Bowl? It's the same similar level of insanity. If Brant Keithy is in a similar situation with his recovery, it'd be wild. And what if that's the case? And he's like, I'm gonna compete. That's who I am, and he does awesome. That would make the story even better.
So fingers crossed for Brant Keithy, because we all want him to be successful. I imagine the email doesn't cite the other players, but it's not just going to be the guys that got invited to the Combine. The whole reason that you do the Big 12 day is for guys that don't get invited to the NFL Scouting Combine, for the dudes who don't make that cut, whatever. So like ETN from BYU, I assume, was going to be at the Big 12 one. A couple other Utah players, not Karene Reed, not Brant Keithy, not Junior Tafuna, hopefully will get an opportunity to go showcase their abilities and showcase their skill.
Who are some of those players off the top of your head that would be draft eligible or trying to get drafted? Because we really the only ones I can think of are those ones that are getting these Combine invites, which good for Utah. Good for these guys.
You know whose name has just been absent from every headline and is something that maybe it's because of the injury and the same thing with Brant Keithy. It's an injury recovery situation. I don't know if anyone is talking to Cam Rising about anything.
Right. That's true. Cam you would think would be that one of those guys.
I mean, I know that his health is going to be questioned, but that's what these things are about. That's what you do with this. You look at it and you say, all right, find me somebody who I need to like actually take a look at. Find me somebody who I need to sit down and interview and get a doctor to evaluate and test and tell me if that knee is ever going to be the same again. And let's see if this guy's good to go. Like Mekhi Bernard should go right to the Big 12.
Mekhi ought to be one of those guys. Yeah.
I imagine.
Shout out to the Bernard breakdown.
Yeah. Van Fillinger, I think, will be a guy that's invited to the Star in Frisco, Texas to do something like that.
This is in lieu of individual schools' pro days. So you would hope that the Big 12 is not limiting their invitations. You'd hope that they're letting anyone who's thinking about trying out for the NFL effectively is allowed to be part of this.
I don't want to see Dorian Singer there, okay? I want to see Dorian Singer not included because I want him coming back to the University of Utah with an extra year of eligibility. But if he doesn't get that, then he would be one that you would invite to something like this. And actually, more intriguing for me even than like what Cam Rising is up to, I want to know if Caleb Lohner is going to this.
Oh, yeah.
His Utah basketball season is obviously going to be over.
I mean, they might be in the middle of an NIT run. Well, what date is it?
This
again?
is March 18th.
March 8th. They might be in the middle of an NIT run, OC.
Okay, I don't mean to be dismissive of the NIT, but if Caleb Lohner gets invited to this, he needs to skip the NIT run.
Absolutely. He's not a starter on the Runnin' Utes.
And
it's
by
not
the
like
way,
he's a really key player with the Runnin' Utes. He's a nice addition for them. So absolutely.
You have to invite Caleb Lohner to this. Caleb Lohner, if you don't get invited, Caleb, just show up. I would say I'll buy your plane ticket, but he has more money than I do because of NIL opportunities, right, in his college career. So you don't have to help out these college kids anymore.
Whittle buy his plane ticket.
But
you know,
here's like, you have to show up at this thing. That's his future professional. He's not going to be an NBA player. Caleb Lohner absolutely could make an NFL roster. Now, I'm not telling you he's Antonio Gates or Tony Gonzalez, but we saw what it looked like. 1 year the dude played football at a high level. 1 year he tried to be a football guy, primarily first and foremost. 1 season, and he scored touchdowns.
Yeah, all of his catches were touchdowns.
Like, and he was
all 17. No, just kidding.
He was
a
threat.
It was
like four.
Yeah.
And you know what? I actually think he caught one that wasn't a touchdown before it was all said and done, didn't he?
I think they were all touchdowns.
If only I had a computer with all of the combined knowledge.
Yeah, if only.
If only the internet would tell me what.
I'm fairly certain he was 100% touchdowns.
Well, now I have to look it up, James.
We'll
and
see.
That's bad radio, but
You're right.
I'm going to do it anyway.
We could just risk the misinformation and just go with it.
No, because I want to be correct. I want to know whether or not they were
Big J journalist.
No,
Sean O'Connell.
not because I want people to have the truth, but because I personally want to be correct about whether or not. You know what? Why am I looking at the official Utah stats instead of just going to the much more friendly, user-friendly ESPN stat line thing? What is wrong with me? Why am I acting like a rookie here? But don't you think that Caleb Lohner would be one of the more interesting?
Oh, he would. He absolutely would, and it says a lot about how he performed. Yes, stats-wise, I mean, only a handful of catches.
You're correct, by the way.
Okay, all
4 catches, 54 yards, 4 touchdowns. So that doesn't predict that he's going to be in the NFL or get drafted in the NFL. But here's what happens. You take a guy like that, and you have him go run, and let's say that Caleb Lohner, I don't know what kind of 40 Caleb Lohner runs. I really don't. Well, let's say that Caleb Lohner puts somewhere in like the 4.6s up on the board at 6'7" and 250 pounds. There is absolutely an NFL team or several NFL teams out there that are just like, invite this kid to some offseason workouts. Let's see what he can do. And they're just going to throw a ball in his direction and see if he can catch it. And the answer to that question is yes. So Caleb Lohner will be a pro football player. Is it going to be in the NFL? Is it going to be in like the UFL, one of these spring leagues or something? That's a name I need to see. I need to see Mekhi Bernard down there. I need to see Zemiah Vaughn down there. I need to see Caleb Lohner down there in Frisco, Texas. And James just sent me an email that we're doing the show live from Texas at Big 12. James,
we're gonna make it happen.
That would be awesome.
We're gonna see about making that happen. It's been on my list of things, but yes,
I will say this. I would rather attend this than Big 12 Media Days.
All right. We'll just do the switcheroo.
Because Deion Sanders isn't going to talk to us at Big 12 Media Days. We might be able to get him to talk to us at this.
Should we try to borrow BYU Sports Nation set and just try to turn it red instead of blue?
That would be
because that seemed to be such a draw for those guys.
That's all you got to do. You just got to go and
the last one.
You got to set up
Shout out to Jerem Jordan.
You got to set some big desks up. Okay, you got to get a bunch of cameras, a bunch of lighting, and then everyone's going to gravitate towards this set.
That's. From what you and Spence and watching it on ESPN Plus, that seemed to be what happened for BYU Sports Nation.
They had a better setup than ESPN did, than Fox did. They had Fox and ESPN had little podiums there. BYU Sports Nation took over midfield, and everyone's just like, "Well, yep, they're the biggest set, so we all got to sit down."
Deion,
and talk to
who talked to nobody who didn't want to talk to anybody except for do his podium obligation, just walked right over there.
That's right.
Austin Collie might have helped with that, right?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Seeing a guy like Austin Collie, oh yeah, let me go talk to them.
Yeah, hold on. You think that Deion knows who Austin Collie is?
Yeah.
Austin, like anyone else, should, but they weren't contemporaries in the NFL.
It's true. Maybe, and he didn't have a long career in the NFL.
Anyone younger than Deion should, but I don't know.
Maybe he did. Maybe it wasn't quite the Austin.
Deion probably couldn't recognize 80% of the wide receivers he covered in the NFL.
You're right. It was definitely Jerem Jordan. That was the draw.
It was Jerem Jordan.
Our guy. Our enemy, Jerem Jordan.
All right. Anyway, so that's the news. Sean O'Connell Show, wrap it up next. We will give away 2 Pantera tickets, and we'll do a little crosstalk with Spence. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. I'm hitting refresh over and over on the NFL Combine 40-yard dash results for the defensive line, hoping we get a Junior Tafuna time before the show's over. But maybe Spence Checketts will have it for you on the drive. I don't even know if he's running the 40. Everyone gets to make their own decisions on that kind of a thing. All right, 2 Pantera tickets. If you can tell me, we talked about this early on the show, 877-353-0700 to win. If you could tell me which NFL scouting combine test is the greatest predictor of quarterback success, which drill they run at the NFL scouting combine, and I'll make it easy for you. It's one of like the athletic tests. It's not a throwing situation. Which one of those is the greatest predictor of quarterback success, according to the article we cited earlier from The Athletic and Sumer Sports, and we talked about it a lot on the show. Quarterbacks, you should draft the guy who has the best performance in what drill, according to the actual stats. Crosstalk today brought to you by our friends at Burt Brothers. Spring into savings. Get your car ready for the season with $69 tires, $50 off service tickets, and $79 alignments with the purchase of 2 or more tires. Don't wait. These deals are not going to last forever. Stop by your nearest Burt Brothers today. Burt Brothers does it better. All right. Spence Checketts, how are you?
The one yesterday was more on tune.
Yeah, well, I'm not here to sing.
You're here to jingle, not sing.
I don't mind jingling.
As we identified yesterday. Good stuff with Gordy today.
Yeah, he's awesome.
I had a chance to I had to run a bunch of errands. So, you know the deal. You're in the car, fire up the Sean O'Connell show, which you all should do as well. And I had a chance to listen to a good portion of that. It made me miss doing radio with Gordy. I used to do it all the time. We'll be doing NBA draft stuff coming up in June. I loved his, I call it playing offense and defense in a tuxedo drop. Perfect Gordy, because he has such a unique way to explain things in his own, utilizing his own terms that none of the rest of us think of. It was perfect because he's dead on.
All right, what's coming up on the drive?
A lot of stuff.
Anything specifically that you want to tell me?
No.
Just lots of stuff?
Yeah, just lots of stuff.
Okay, do you know the answer to the trivia question that I just asked? It's a little bit counterintuitive.
Which drill?
Which test run at the NFL Scouting Combine has come out to be, through retrospective statistical analysis, has been the greatest predictor of QB success?
Well, as a Jets fan, apparently, if a prospect just is alone and he can throw it 60 yards to nobody in particular, that's usually what the Jets rely upon. But no, I do not know the answer to your dynamite trivia question.
Okay, so what like as a football fan, let's say you're the GM and you're not using a statistical analysis. You're just like, I need a quarterback who can bench press 225 a bunch of times, has a fast 40. What would you think would be your decision? What would weigh heaviest on your mind?
Based off of the way you're asking the question, I'm inclined to say something random like vertical jump.
It's broad jump.
Broad jump.
Isn't that weird?
That is weird. Because if you didn't put the context on the question, I would not have tried to think out of the box.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And you have to, apparently, with some of these NFL draft things. And we talked about this early in the show, but we went over the offense. I'm still trying to find the defensive version of this, but broad jump is the greatest prediction of quarterback success. If you're talking about your running back, you want someone who is young and is heavy. Age and weight are the greatest predictor of running back success, according to all of the measurements taken at the scouting combine. For offensive linemen, it's 40-yard dash.
Okay.
For tight ends, it's 40-yard dash. For wide receiver, it is age first, then vertical jump, and then bench press for wide receivers.
That's wild.
And actually, Puka Nacua, I talked about this earlier as well. Puka Nacua was a top-level performer in only one thing at the scouting combine. And then, obviously, he went on to have a record-setting rookie year and was absolutely incredible. It was the gauntlet drill where they run horizontally across the field, and they catch and turn, catch and turn, catch and turn, right? He ran the fastest gauntlet and caught all the balls. And the predictive nature of that is if you can run fast, not slow down to make the catches, that means that you have confident hands and you can actually catch on the run, catch on the fly, which is what they're looking for. It's the only thing he was the best at at the NFL Scouting Combine, and then he had the best rookie season by far.
Would you take Travis Hunter, number one? You think he's the best prospect?
I think he's the best overall football player in the draft. I just don't think you need to take him at number one.
Most of the mocks I have read, he's not falling below 3. The Giants at 3 is his floor.
I love him because you're drafting 2 players. You're drafting 2 high-level players if you draft Travis Hunter.
Right.
Abdul Carter had the foot thing that showed up in his medical testing.
No surgery, right?
He's not going to have surgery. No. They've opted not to have surgery. It is called a stress reaction. So he's got a boo-boo in his foot. He's fine.
He'll be all right.
He's going to be okay. They'll tape it up, and he's not like Joel Embiid. He's not some NBA big man whose ankles are going to fall apart on him. So I think he still goes number 1 overall.
Best pre-draft, or I should say draft, surrounding the draft story in recent years. I just got such a kick out of the Laramie Tunsil story. Remember that?
So great.
It's like, hey, no, that's not me. That's not me. Because initially the video was leaked of just somebody in a gas mask taking massive bong rips.
Yes.
And Laramie Tunsil's reps like, it's totally not him. It's not me. And then the second video was released. Dude takes off the mask, and it's totally Laramie Tunsil.
It's good old-fashioned Laramie Tunsil.
It's like the one thing, just don't do that prior to the draft. Don't allow somebody to take a video of you wearing a gas mask taking bong rips. Just, it's pretty basic. Just don't do that. Look, it turned out He's one of the best, at his position in pro football. But we'll see who has the gas mask taking bong rips situation occur prior to the NFL draft this year.
I hope it's nobody, but yes.
Do you think either of the quarterbacks are worth taking number 1 for Tennessee?
No.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Feels like that's kind of consensus
I think they don't think so either.
Yeah.
And maybe something that happens at the combine can influence that, but the game film obviously matters a heck of a lot more. Turns out if either of those guys is a freak outlier in the broad jump, then Tennessee should draft him.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Looks like RSL finally made a signing. Look at that, a striker.
We talked about that for 30 minutes today.
I'm sure you did not. I don't know anything about any of these players, but we will do a little bit of RSL on the show today. But, a lot of basketball last night. And then, as you referenced, we'll continue to kind of monitor the youths. What do we got? Junior, Correte, and Brandt at the combine. Do you think Brandt ends up?
He's not going to do any of the drills.
Okay, all right. What's wild is I think a lot of us probably forget, like, prior to Dalton kind of bursting on the scene, Brandt was the dude that everybody's like, this is a modern day tight end weapon that you need in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So hopefully he can, find a way to stick and get in a good opportunity. But obviously injuries have derailed a lot of people's careers.
Stay tuned for The Drive with Spence Checketts. Thanks to you for listening and everyone who joined me on the show today. We'll do it again tomorrow on the Sean O'Connell Show. It's ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.